Chapter 243. The war in the future was ultimately a war of energy. And now, Emosure had mastered energy that was ahead of the flaming continent. One had to know that solar energy and crystalline energy were still commonly used on the flaming origin continent. Emosure's energy extraction technology was completely beyond their plane. With energy, the next step was to develop combat mechas. Emosure thought that he should be able to obtain the technology and equipment to make combat mechas by signing in at the place where combat mechas were manufactured. But he had just arrived and did not know much about the flaming continent. So he decided to put this plan aside for the time being. Of course, with the little monk's intelligence and the knowledge and experience of the contractor, he also had a ready-made cheetah mech. It was not difficult to come up with the technology to manufacture combat mechas. But Emosure thought that the system's products would be more advanced than theirs. So he planned to sign in at the place where combat mechas were manufactured when he had the chance in the future. The most important thing now was to increase his and the base's strength as much as possible. It would be safer to sign in at those places when his strength increased. Therefore, for the next period of time, Emosure signed in every day in the virtual dragon palace. 8 drops of dragon blood every day. He estimated that he would be able to level up again in a year or so. At the same time, he could also get more than 100 million evolution points by summoning infected creatures into the extraction chamber every day. In addition to the evolution points from the sea dragon clone and the clone on Earth. He could get more than 300 million evolution points every day. He estimated that in 2 months, he would get more than 10 billion evolution points. At that time, the system would be able to level up again. On this day, Emosure had nothing to do, so he was enjoying the scenery of Hunting Island No. 1 with happy. At the same time, about 25,000 people were flying toward Hunting Island No. 1 on hoverboards. These 25,000 people were all the remaining members of the Sandstorm mercenary group. The person in the lead was the only remaining vice captain of the Sandstorm mercenary group. Level 7 Hunter, Ding Jiqing. This person was a middle-aged man who looked rough but was actually very careful. That was why Shachi let him stay in the group when he left. Beside him was a young man. This young man had long black hair that was as shiny as a cow's lick. Her white clothes were as clean and white as the new bedsheets in the hospital. Ding Jiqing said flatteringly, "Young Master Wu Erden, as the young master of the Black Pack gang, you don't have to come to this remote hunting island." The white-clothed Erden laughed out loud and said, "That's right. How can this young master compare to those hedonistic sons of rich parents? My father didn't send me to Hunting Island 1 to have fun." Ding Jiqing nodded repeatedly. That's right. Those playboys are not even worthy of carrying young Master Wu Erden's shoes." Erden smiled politely and looked in the direction of Hunting Island No. 1. "Tell me more about Hunting Island 1. Ding Jiqing nodded and said, "That was about 5 months ago. Our leader, along with a few other vice leaders and 5,000 brothers, came to Hunting Island No. 1. After that, we lost contact. When I sent people over to investigate, they found that this place had already been occupied by infected creatures. Through the surveillance drones, there are almost no living people here. So I thought that our Sandstorm mercenary group would join hands with your gang to clean up this Hunting Island No. 1. Don't think that this Hunting Island No. 1 is worthless. In fact, our leader has already said that there is a crystal source vein under this Hunting Island No. 1. And the reserves are very rich." Wu Erden nodded and asked again, "Since there is a crystal source vein, why didn't the island owner at that time exploit it?" Ding Jiqing smiled and said, "Young Master Wu Erden, the strength of Hunting Island No. 1 before was only considered insignificant in the entire continent. Even if they could exploit it, they couldn't defend it." The white-clothed Wu Erden nodded. "You're right. They have the vein but no strength, and our Black Pack gang has the strength but no vein. Now that Hunting Island No. 1 is deserted, we just happen to occupy this Hunting Island." Speaking of this, he glanced at Ding Jiqing next to him without a trace. He said, "Don't worry, you found the vein here. Of course, your Sandstorm mercenary group will benefit." This was what Ding Jiqing wanted to hear. He quickly put on a smile and nodded. "Thank you, young Master Wu Erden." As they spoke, They had already arrived above Hunting Island number 1. They didn't choose to land directly. Instead, they released more than 500 drones to explore the island. Through the videos taken by the drones, they found that the island had basically turned blood red. The animals were blood red. The plants were blood red. The mountains were blood red. The water was also blood red. It was as if this was a blood red world. But after a while, 2 drones flew above the center of the island and made a shocking discovery. They saw that there was a circular ground in the middle of the blood red. On this circular ground, there were large patches of green plants. On the blood red island, there was a patch of green land with a radius of 50 kilometers. This made Dan and Ding Jiqing very surprised. When the camera zoomed in, they could see that it was basically all crops. In the middle of the fields, there was a large factory. From the sky, they could see that there were robots and humans in both the fields and the factories. When Ding Jiqing saw this, he was both shocked and terrified. He quickly explained to Dan next to him, "Young Master Dan, the last time I sent people to investigate here, they were in a hurry and didn't explore the center. I didn't mean to deceive the Black Pack gang." Dan smoothed out the corner of his shirt that was fluttering in the wind and smiled kindly. "There's always an accident. It's inevitable. Who do you think they are?" Ding Jiqing thought for a while and replied, "It should be the original owner of Hunting Island number 1, Beale. I guess, maybe some kind of virus broke out here and they can't solve it. But he can't bear to move away from Hunting Island number 1, so he's holed up in this factory." Because the virus broke out on Hunting Island number 1, communication was also destroyed, so we can't contact them. At this point, Ding Jiqing added another sentence. "Of course, it's also possible that after the virus broke out, the entire Hunting Island was occupied by zombies and infected creatures. Someone else discovered the mineral veins here first, and they were the first to get here." At this point, his face became a little serious. To be able to survive in this place where infected creatures were everywhere, the strength of this faction must not be underestimated. Dan smiled and nodded. Then he said a domineering sentence. "No matter which faction dares to steal Black Pack Gang's mineral vein, we'll destroy them." 244 Python genetic weapon. Dan looked at the green field in the middle of the Scarlet Hunting Island in the video. He said a domineering sentence. "No matter which faction dares to steal Black Pack Gang's mineral vein, we'll destroy them." This was the style of the Black Pack Gang. Domineering, domineering. When Ding Jiqing heard this, he also nodded his head. Then he said to the mercenary controlling the drone, "Check the strength of the entire base." The mercenary nodded and his fingers danced on the keyboard. Soon, the drone released an invisible wave that spread throughout the base. Then, according to the reflected wave, everyone's strength was accurately measured. Looking at the data on the screen, Ding Jiqing doubted his eyes. Level 2 Hunter. 1 person. Great Hunter. 133 people. More than 30,000 hunters. 2 Level 1 Psychic Masters. The rest are all zombie hunters and psychokinesis? The others heard this and looked at each other. Damn, this strength was too weak. Any level 3 hunter from their mercenary group could destroy this factory. Dan flicked his hair and asked, "Is there a problem with the drone?" Ding Jiqing nodded. "It's possible." This was the only explanation. Otherwise, how could this group of unbelievably weak people be able to defend this place in a place filled with infected creatures and desolate beasts? "Send a few more drones to check it out," Ding Jiqing said. The keyboard player quickly nodded. After a while, the results came back. Everyone quickly looked at the screen. It's exactly the same as before. "But this is impossible," Ding Jiqing said. Although the people on the first hunting island were weak, they couldn't be this weak. Dan waved his hand domineeringly. "In that case, let's go directly to the factory and destroy them." Ding Jiqing was very careful and said cautiously, "Master Wu Ken, this is a bit strange. Let's figure it out first." Dan smiled and asked, "How many hunters above level 3 in your mercenary group? How many psychic masters above level 3? Ding Jiqing replied, "There are more than 3,000 hunters above level 3. There are more than 200 greedy masters above level 3. Dan smiled. Any one of them could easily destroy this lousy place. Now there are more than 3,200 people. In front of absolute strength, any conspiracy is a joke. What are you afraid of? Ding Zhiqing heard this and nodded. Master Dan is right. Then he said to all the mercenaries behind him, "Go to the center of the hunting island and destroy that factory." Although he was still a little worried, he couldn't refuse Master Dan's request. And Master Dan was right. In front of absolute strength, any conspiracy was a joke. After a while, these more than 25,000 people had already arrived above the base. They looked down at the humans below with a disdainful smile on their faces. To them, any one of the people below was a noob. At the same time, the people in the fields below, who were controlling the robots to farm, also noticed the black mass of humans flying over from the sky. They were all shocked. Oh no, there are intruders. They still remembered that when they were on Earth, there were more than 2,000 people floating above their heads, looking down at them from a high vantage point. They were like a group of insufferably arrogant immortals, looking down on all living beings. Now, these insufferably arrogant guys appeared again. But last time, Mr. Mo was not in the base. This time, Mr. Mo was in the factory not far away. Thinking of this, everyone felt a lot more at ease. Someone quickly reported to the factory with a communicator. Intruders, intruders. Soon, the people above the factory also came out. They looked up at the sky, which was like a group of dark clouds. Just like when they were on Earth, they looked up to that group of people. But the difference was that at that time, there was only fear, shock, and despair in their hearts. But now, they were only curious. They were curious about what this group of people was doing here. As for fear and despair, there was no trace of it. Happy and Mr. Mo were here. If these people dared to make a move, they would be courting death. At the same time, Guojutao found Mo Shi in the factory. He reported, "Mr. Mo, there are intruders. Rough estimate, there are more than 20,000 people." Mo Shi took a sip of the tea that Happy had just brewed and nodded. Well, not bad. Guojutao looked at Mo Shi's relaxed appearance and knew that he did not have to worry too much. With Mr. Mo's strength, it should not be a problem to deal with these people. Thinking of this, he said, "Mr. Mo, I'll go out first." Mo Shi shook his head and said with a chuckle, "Let's take a look together." As he said that, he clapped his hands. On one of the walls of the room, the surveillance screen of the entire base suddenly appeared. Mo Shi said, "Above the factory." The screen immediately changed to the top of the base. In the screen, more than 20,000 people were looking at the base below with disdain. Guojutao could not help but feel nervous and asked, "Mr. Mo, don't we need to go out?" Mo Shi took a sip of tea and said again, "Just watch." Although Guojutao did not understand why, since Mo Shi said that he could just watch, he was happy to be idle. At the same time in the sky, the more than 20,000 people were looking down at the base. That stroked the bangs in front of his forehead, glanced at the ants below and said, "Let's start." Ding Zhiqing replied, "Yes, young Master Erden." Behind Ding Zhiqing, a level 5 hunter volunteered to fight. "Leader, I can do it alone. You and your brothers, as well as young Master Erden, can watch the show from the side." Ding Zhiqing nodded, "Okay." Sending a level 5 hunter to deal with the ants below was already giving them a lot of face. That level 5 hunter received the order and immediately flashed a genetic weapon on his right arm. It was actually a 100-meter-long, python-shaped genetic weapon. He was in the air, and the genetic weapon on his right arm was swung downwards. He shouted, "You're just an ant." The next moment, that python-shaped genetic weapon was like a 100-meter-long thick pillar, smashing down towards the base. In his eyes, there was already a bloodthirsty gaze. He had not killed anyone for a few months. Today, he was going to have a good time. However, at this moment, a strange change occurred. When his genetic weapon smashed into the air, it seemed to have smashed into an invisible barrier. Bang! Not only did it not smash down. Instead, it was bounced back. Luckily, he withdrew his strength quickly. Otherwise, when it bounced back, it would have smashed his head and made him bleed. If a level 5 hunter's head was smashed by his own genetic weapon, that would be a joke. Chapter 244. A level 5 hunter's all-out attack not only did not cause any damage to the base below, but his genetic weapon also bounced back. And he almost hit his own head. This made everyone a little surprised. Old 8, what's going on? You can't even handle a group of rookies? What are you doing? Some people also saw that something was wrong and asked, Old 8, what's going on? Old 8's face was ugly and he shook his head. Nothing. Losing face in front of so many people, especially in front of young Master Wu Erden, was something he would never allow. He straightened his body and said, that was just a warm-up. After that, his genetic weapon shrunk to half a meter long. Then the entire genetic weapon lit up with a glaring red and white light. Everyone was stunned. He was going to use an energy weapon. Facing a group of rookies, he was going to use an energy weapon. Did Old 8 eat shit? Old 8 naturally guessed what everyone was thinking, but that strange scene just now made him have to be careful. Since he could not smash down, then he could only use an invincible energy weapon. Soon, at the tip of his energy weapon, a fiery red light shot out. It instantly attacked the crowd below. However, the fiery red ray of light was unable to descend any further when it was halfway there. Then, above the entire base below, a light shield appeared. This light shield seemed to be made up of countless hexagons the size of houses. It covered the entire base. At this time, no matter how much strength Old 8 used, his energy could not break through the light shield. When the other mercenaries saw this, they were all shocked. This small base's defense was strong enough. It could even block the energy beam of a level 5 hunter. Old 8 saw this and frowned. The energy in his body surged, and the second energy beam was about to form. However, at this time, a black shadow suddenly shot out from the base. Old 8 saw this and quickly wanted to dodge. However, the speed of the black shadow far exceeded Old 8's reaction ability. It instantly pierced through Old 8's chest. It directly pierced through Old 8's body. Then, the black shadow flew forward for thousands of meters before landing on the ground. It was stuck on the ground at an angle. As for Old 8's body, it was like an eagle that had been shot and fell to the ground. Soon he fell into the light barrier. At that moment, everyone was greatly alarmed. They looked at the black shadow that had hit Old 8. It was an arrow. No, to be exact, it should be a spear. Although it looked like an arrow, it was more than 3 meters long. Its entire body was pitch black. Under the sunlight, it emitted a metallic luster. The shape of the arrow was very peculiar. The tail feathers of the arrow looked like a pair of small wings. Everyone in the mercenary group was shocked. The person who could throw this long arrow could kill a level 5 hunter in one hit, and the level 5 hunter didn't even have time to react. So this person's strength should be at least a level 7 hunter. This completely contradicted the results of the drone's investigation. At the same time, in Emoshir's office in the factory. When Guojutao saw this scene, he was also very puzzled. In the base, other than Mr. Emo, could it be that there was another expert that they did not know about? Thinking of this, he could not help but take a look at Emoshir. At this time, Emoshir was still sipping tea, with a relaxed smile, casually staring at the screen. At this time in the sky. When Ding Jiqing saw this scene, he frowned slightly. In this small base, there was a hidden expert, and in some way he avoided the detection of their drone. Sure enough, no matter at any time, he could not be careless. He took a look at Erden next to him. He saw that Erden was also slightly surprised. But this surprise was just a flash. Then he laughed. This broken base, there is a hidden expert. In this case, let's cut the Gordian knot. Let's see how long this hidden expert can hide. When Ding Jiqing heard this, he naturally understood Erden's meaning. He said, Master Erden, don't worry, I will let people take care of this broken base. As he said this, he waved to all the brothers behind him. Everyone, do it. The execution ability of these mercenaries of the Sandstorm Mercenary Group was beyond doubt. In the next moment, the 25,000 people actually took action at the same time. All the hunters' genetic weapons lit up, and at the same time, they attacked the light shield below. All the psychic power of the Grand Psychic Masters also spread out together. They wanted to find the weakness of this energy light shield. However, very quickly, reality slapped them in the face once again. All their genetic weapons, and even many people's energy weapons, landed solidly on that energy light shield. And the result was, whether it was their genetic weapon attack, their energy weapon attack, or the psychic power of the Grand Psychic Masters, none of them could penetrate that energy light shield. And they could not cause any damage to that light shield. On the contrary, from within the energy light shield, huge black arrows were shot out one after another. Puff, puff, puff. Every time an arrow was shot out, a mercenary's body was pierced. And it was the kind that was directly killed. In the beginning, they only suspected that there was a hidden expert in the base. But soon they found out that they were wrong. Because more and more huge black arrows were shot out from the base. They were shot out in groups. And these mercenaries, whether they were hunters or Grand Psychic Masters, in the face of those black arrows, there was only one result: death. Until now, they only knew. In the base, there was a group of experts hidden. And they were experts whose strength was far beyond theirs. In just a short while, more than 2,000 of them had been killed in an instant. And the most frightening thing was that so many people had died, but they did not even see the shadow of the opponent. Young Master Erden, there are many hidden experts here, let's retreat quickly. Ding Jiqing shouted while protecting Erden. At this time, Erden no longer had his previous pride and arrogance. This small base below actually hid so many experts. Facing such experts, if they did not escape now, when would they? Thinking of this, he flipped his black hair and shouted, "Let's go!" Ding Jiqing quickly called a group of brothers over to protect Erden and quickly escaped from this place. Behind them, the soldiers of the Sandstorm mercenary group were pierced by the huge black arrows one by one and fell down. Soon, they escaped 50 kilometers away. They thought that they were already safe. However, the huge black arrows were still shooting out from behind. There were still hunters who were killed in an instant. Everyone was shocked. This F*** killing range was too big. They had already escaped 50 kilometers away, but it was still not safe. Keep running! Ding Jiqing quickly shouted. Chapter 245. The sky above the Scarlet Hunting Island No. 1 was filled with humans, like a dark cloud. But at this moment, these humans were all panicking. They quickly fled into the distance. Behind them, giant black arrows were flying. Every arrow would penetrate a mercenary's body, killing him instantly. No matter what trump cards they had, they were just a joke in front of the giant black arrows. Some people's genetic weapons were shields, but their genetic weapons were easily penetrated by the giant black arrows. Some people's genetic weapons were a complete set of armor, but their armor could not withstand a single blow from the giant black arrows. This was the terrifying part of the Virtual Dragon Palace's attack. As long as one was targeted by the Virtual Arrow Tower of the Virtual Dragon Palace, one would be in extreme danger within 100 kilometers. What the hell is this place? Erden cursed as he fled. As a level 4 hunter, the panic in his heart was far greater than that of the others. He had thought that coming to Hunting Island No. 1 would be a relaxing and enjoyable thing. He had thought of it as a vacation. But he did not expect that there were people on Hunting Island No. 1 and that they were so strong. If he had known, he would rather be forced to train at home than come to this godforsaken place. Finally, after they had fled for more than 100 kilometers, there were no more black arrows coming from behind. They finally heaved a sigh of relief. Looking at the Sandstorm mercenary group again. They had already lost more than 3,000 people. Ding Jiqing's face was extremely ugly. They had come to Hunting Island No. 1 with full confidence because they wanted to occupy the island and not leave anyone else a chance. But they did not expect such a strong existence to be hidden on Hunting Island No. 1. They had lost more than 3,000 people before they even saw the shadow of their opponent. This was F*** ridiculous. Erden glanced behind him and said with lingering fear, "That's right. This place is too creepy. When I go back, I'll talk to my old man and ask him to send people to flatten this godforsaken place." Ding Jiqing quickly nodded. Yes, our sandstorm mercenary group can't handle this place. If we want to get the crystal source vein, we need the strong people from the Black Tuaw gang. Erden nodded and said, "Don't worry. Once I go back, I'll ask my old man to send people over." Ding Jichen quickly said, that's the best. Then he looked behind him. "Young Master Erden, this place is too close to the first hunting island. It's still not safe. It wouldn't be good if the experts there chased after them. Let's hurry back to the mercenary group first." Then, more than 20,000 of them escorted Erden and fled into the distance. Soon, they were more than 400 kilometers away from base number 1. Hunting Island number 1, Mo Shi's office. Guojutao couldn't help but smile when he saw those people running away in a panic from the video. The people of the Flaming Dawn continent had always thought of themselves as superior and superior. Therefore, every time they arrived at the base, they would act high and mighty as if they were gods. This made all of them very unhappy. Today, everyone in the base couldn't help but feel refreshed when they saw those people fleeing miserably. But what puzzled Guojutao was, who was the one who did it? Where did that energy barrier come from? But before he could ask, Mo Shi had already put down his teacup. At the same time, a faint light began to appear between the fingers of his right hand. This light was only the size of a sesame seed. It was blood red. At first, the light was very weak, far less than the light of a match. But gradually, this ray of light became stronger. It gradually became brighter than a match. Slowly, it became brighter than a candle. Then, it became brighter than a bonfire. After a full 10 minutes, this blood-red light seemed to be more dazzling than the sun. The whole office was dyed blood red by the light. In the center of the light, there was still a sesame seed-sized light spot. However, Guojutao only took a glance at it and immediately felt a chill down his spine. He didn't even dare to take a second look at it. This small light spot seemed to come from the depths of hell, carrying a biting, cold, murderous aura and a monstrous, bloodthirsty aura. "This is," Guojutao asked in panic. "Telekinesis." Mo Shi only said 2 words in a bland tone. However, these 2 words completely subverted Guojutao's understanding. In his knowledge, telekinesis was completely invisible and intangible. It was just a human's brain waves. However, telekinesis was much stronger than a human's brain waves. Telekinesis was invisible and intangible. It could not be seen or touched. But now, Mo Shi had condensed a sesame seed-sized light spot in his hand, and he actually said that this was telekinesis. How was this possible? In fact, this was not Mo Shi's telekinesis, but dragon's will. After he compressed all his dragon's will to the limit, he formed such a small dragon's will light spot. Then, Mo Shi flicked his right middle finger gently. Whoosh! That small light spot immediately left his finger. It instantly passed through the window and flew towards the sky. The small light spot emitted a blood-red light that seemed to be more dazzling than the sun. This blood-red light quickly illuminated the entire base. Everyone who was busy with their work was stunned. Because the light was too dazzling, they couldn't see the blood-red light spot at all. They could only see the blood-red light that filled the sky. This blood-red light that filled the sky looked like a scene of doomsday. However, this situation only lasted for less than 3 seconds. Soon, the blood-red light that filled the sky flew into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Because it was too fast, people could only see a huge blood-red light in front of them, with a blood-red tail more than 10 kilometers long behind it. It was like a blood-red comet. This blood-red comet cut through the sky and quickly disappeared into the horizon. Everyone in the base was shocked to the point of being dumbfounded. They didn't know that this was Mo Shi's dragon's will. They only thought that this was a natural phenomenon. What the hell is this? Does anyone know that this is a normal natural phenomenon in the Flaming Dawn continent? This is too shocking. This is too shocking. At the same time, 500 kilometers to the east of the base, the 22,000 people of the Sandstorm mercenary group had landed on the ground to rest. A mercenary said, "We've escaped 500 kilometers. We're finally safe." Another mercenary nodded. "As long as the hidden expert in the base doesn't chase us out, we'll be safe." Judging from the situation captured by the drone just now, the hidden expert really didn't chase us out. At the same time, Erden also took a few breaths. He calmed down a little. Looking at the direction of the first hunting island in the distance, he felt a little angry. It wasn't easy to get a job, but he didn't expect to encounter a mysterious expert. He would be scolded by the old man when he went back this time. Damn it, the next time he came out, he would bring a combat suit and raze this place to the ground. However, just as this thought appeared in his mind, he suddenly saw a blood-red light coming from the sky above the first hunting island. Chapter 246. On a small island 500 kilometers away from the first hunting island. Although it was called a small island, it had a radius of more than 30 kilometers. At this time, more than 20,000 people landed on this small island that almost no one had ever been to before. The person in the lead was naturally Wu Dan, who was wearing a snow-white robe. Ding Jiqing next to him said carefully, "Young Master Wu Dan, we were lucky to be able to escape this time." Wu Dan looked in the direction of the first hunting island and sneered. "They were unlucky to be able to escape this time. When I go back this time, I'll ask my old man for a few mechas. We'll raze this place to the ground one by one." He said the last few words with gritted teeth. Obviously, he was very upset about losing face today. After all, the Black Pack Gang was the biggest force within a radius of 100,000 kilometers. And as the young master of the Black Pack Gang, no matter where he went, those people had to bow to him and flatter him. He didn't expect to be humiliated in such a desolate place. Not only would he be scolded by his old man when he went back, he would also be laughed at by his half-brother. He was angry and naturally wanted to raze this place to the ground. Ding Jiqing next to him nodded and said, Of course, of course." With the strength of the Black Pack Gang, they could easily send a few mechas to raze this place to the ground. What hidden powerhouse? In front of the mechs, he's just trash. While talking, Wu Dan suddenly saw the direction of the first hunting island. A blood-red light was flying in this direction. At the front of this blood-red light was a huge fireball. To be exact, a blood-red fireball. Behind it was a long tail. It looked like a blood-red comet. But this comet was extremely bright. Even the sun in the sky was not as bright as this blood-red comet. Its blood-red light almost dyed half of the sky red. From afar, it dyed the sky and the ground like a sea of blood. And its body was like a deadly comet that rushed out of the sea of blood. Just one look was enough to instill fear in people's hearts. What the hell is that? Behind them, exclamations of surprise could be heard one after another. As a LV-7 hunter, Ding Jiqing was particularly sensitive to that kind of fear. He felt as if all the 36,000 hairs on his body were standing on end. After becoming a level 7 hunter, he had not felt such extreme fear for a long time. In his fear, he couldn't help but cry out. Before he finished speaking, he had already activated his hoverboard shoes. At this time, he didn't even care about Wu Dan, who had been treating him carefully. Hearing this, the rest of the people hurriedly activated their hoverboards and fled into the distance. However, how could their speed compare to the speed of a comet? In just 3 short seconds, the blood-red comet came crashing down on them. Boom! At this moment, the scene seemed to freeze. Time seemed to last forever. Nothing else could be seen between heaven and earth. Blood-red light filled the entire space. This situation lasted for more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, the blood-red light slowly dissipated. The sky returned to its original blue color. Once again, the sea was converted to the azure color. It was as if nothing had happened. However, the small island with a radius of more than 30 kilometers that those people had stopped at had disappeared. A large amount of seawater was flowing toward the place where the small island had been. And dozens of kilometers away, huge waves of 100 meters high were rapidly spreading in all directions. It was like a huge wave caused by a tsunami. In the rolling waves, countless dead fish and prawns could be seen being washed up and rolled down. This was the horror of the Dragon Mind Comet. 500 kilometers was 1,000 miles. Taking a person's head from 1,000 miles away was a child's play in front of Emoshur. His Dragon Mind comet could directly kill tens of thousands of people from 1,000 miles away, compressing the huge Dragon Mind to a critical point and then flicking it out. And emosure had already left a trace of Dragon Mind on those people. In this way, with the precise guidance of the Dragon Mind, let alone 500 kilometers, even if they escaped 1,000 kilometers, they could still be killed. Thinking of this, emosure chuckled. He picked up the teacup again and slowly took a sip. Guojutao, who was next to him, had already guessed what emosure had done. He asked, "Mr. Emo, they are all dead?" Emosure did not speak. He held the teacup, blew the tea leaves on it, and nodded slightly. However, Guojutao, who was next to him, was shocked. Those people had all left on flying skateboards. According to the flying skateboard speed of 1 kilometer per second, they would have already been 500 kilometers away. Mr. Mo could actually kill more than 20,000 people from 500 kilometers away. What kind of method was this? This was the method of a god. Thinking of this, Guojutao's admiration for emosure increased a little. After a moment of amazement, Guojutao said, "Mr. Mo, then I won't disturb your rest." Emosure nodded. Guojutao left. At this time, emosure really needed to rest. Although it was just a small Dragon Mind sesame seed, it had consumed all of his Dragon Mind. With the current size of his Dragon Mind, it would take at least 2 or 3 months for him to fully recover. One use of the Dragon Mind comet would have to cool down for 2 or 3 months. It seemed that this skill had to be used carefully in the future. Emosure shook his head helplessly. His face was slightly pale. He took out dozens of bottles of Dragon Mind recovery potion from his backpack. Gulp, gulp, gulp. He felt that the feeling of weakness just now had eased a little. However, it was just a relief. With the current size of his Dragon Mind, it was impossible to fully recover with just a few bottles of Dragon Mind recovery potion. He was afraid that he would have to wait for the system to level up and see if he could reward him with an enhanced version of Dragon Mind recovery potion. After doing this, Emosure went through the memories of the 2 people that he had just plundered in his mind. He had just plundered the memories of Erden and Ding Jiqing. In fact, from the memories of Shachi that he had plundered before, he knew that there was a crystal source vein under the first hunting island. It was just that mining the crystal source vein was too costly, so he had not done it. He did not expect that Ding Jiqing also knew about the vein. He also told the Black Pack Gang. It seemed that it would not be long before the people of the Black Pack Gang came here. Although Emosure was not interested in the crystal source vein, even if his own things were to rot in his hands, he would not let others take them for free. Chapter 247. Macho had killed the son of the leader of the Black Pack Gang. It wouldn't be long before the Black Pack Gang found this place. As far as he knew, the leader of the Black Pack Gang was a level 9 hunter. Even with his current strength, it would be difficult to deal with him. Moreover, the Black Pack Gang had 2 mechas on the surface. In fact, they already had 6 combat mechas in their possession. Emosure was now considering how to incorporate the 6 mechas without destroying them. Thinking of this, he asked someone to find the little monk. The little monk was holding a game console with his head lowered. His hands didn't stop at all. His bald head was wrapped in a bandage with 4 crooked red words written on it. On the left was try, and on the right was pass. In the middle was a Buddhist symbol. The game console in his hand. It wasn't a game console from Earth, but a game console from the flaming continent. There were 2 handles on both sides. As long as the buttons were pressed, a virtual screen would pop up in the center. The little monk had accidentally found this in a dormitory. Ever since he discovered this game console, he spent almost half of his time playing games every day. Emosure didn't care much about him. As long as it didn't affect his work, he could play as much as he wanted. When the little monk saw Emosure, he chuckled. Hee, Amitba, good job. Boss Missouri, you were looking for me? In the entire base, almost everyone called Emosure Mr. Mo. Only the little monk called Emosure Boss Missouri. This was a huge contrast with his appearance. Emosure asked, "After all this time, how much do you know about the computers of the flaming continent?" The little monk chuckled and said, "Let's put it this way. As long as you can find a game on the flaming continent, I can crack it. Boss, do you want to play? The game I'm playing now directly turns on the invincible god of death mode. Kill your way through, broken limbs flying, blood splattering everywhere. It's so cool. Emosure was a bit speechless. That's not like a monk. The little monk chuckled and scratched his bald head. Then he put his palms together and made a sound. Amitba, that's good. Boss, do I look like one now? Emosure was amused and said with a smile, Brat, which part of you looks like a monk? Then what do I look like? Emosure was too lazy to banter with him. After a while, there should be a few foreign fighter mechas attacking our base. Do you have the ability to crack their program and take those mechas? The small monk chuckled and scratched his bald head. He said, Boss, I don't dare to say too much. After all, he didn't know much about the mecha programs of the Flaming Dawn continent. However, as long as you buy me some time, I have a 50% chance of cracking their firewall. Emosure nodded. I'll try to buy you as much time as possible. Take over those mechas without damaging them. The small monk nodded and said, Yes, boss. I swear to Buddha that I will complete the mission. Emosure laughed. Do you think Buddha will care about you? The small monk chuckled and said, If Buddha doesn't care about me, I won't believe in Buddha anymore. Emosure asked back, Have you ever believed in Buddha? The small monk scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. I've never believed in Buddha. But I believe in boss. Believe in boss and you will live forever. After sending the small monk away, Emosure continued to check Erden's memories. As a newcomer, every time Emosure plundered a person's memories, he would directly check all of them. From there, he would gain more knowledge. Anyway, his dragon will had now advanced to level 4. Checking the complete memories wouldn't affect him too much. After a while, Emosure made a major discovery in Erden's memories. There was an ancient battlefield on the Flaming Dawn continent. This wasn't an ordinary ancient battlefield, but an ancient battlefield of giant dragons. Legend had it that in ancient times, 2 groups of giant dragons fought there, which eventually formed the ancient battlefield of giant dragons. When Emosure saw this, he couldn't help but feel excited. If he went to the ancient battlefield of giant dragons and signed in there, the benefits should be much greater than the dragon ruins. There were many good things in the ancient battlefield of giant dragons. Not to mention other things, just picking up a piece of dragon scale and making it into a shield would be harder than any shield in the world. Moreover, there were many powerful wild beasts in the ancient battlefield of giant dragons. Therefore, it was also a good place to go for training. However, those who had been there and whose strength was below that of a desolate hunter would often die inexplicably. Even if they didn't die, some strange things would often happen to them. Therefore, the ancient battlefield was sealed by a powerful being. Of course, they didn't completely seal it off. Those who had reached the level of a desolate hunter could still break the seal and go to the ancient battlefield of giant dragons. Therefore, many top experts who had reached the level of a desolate hunter would go to the ancient battlefield of giant dragons to train if they couldn't improve for a long time. After they came back from there, their strength would often increase. Many people would increase by 2 or even 3 levels at once. After becoming a desolate hunter, the difficulty of increasing one's strength increased exponentially. Those who went to the ancient battlefield of giant dragons, no matter their aptitude, would increase by 2 or 3 levels. It could be seen that the ancient battlefield of giant dragons was definitely a treasure trove. The more Emosure thought about it, the more excited he became. He couldn't wait to go to the ancient battlefield of giant dragons. However, after a while, he suppressed the excitement in his heart. It was better to increase his strength to that of a desolate hunter first. This was an extremely long process. Therefore, for the next few days, Emosure continued to sign in at the base every day. Every day, he used 8 drops of dragon blood to transform his body. According to his estimation, it would take another 10 to 11 months before he could increase his strength again. At the same time, in addition to controlling the infected creatures to extract the pods, he would also go outside and hunt a large number of infected creatures. He had this idea: gather 100 billion evolution points as soon as possible and upgrade the system as soon as possible. After upgrading, there might be other ways to increase his strength faster. He would be able to hunt these infected creatures much faster. As long as the infected creatures were level 7 and below, he would be able to explode them into a bloody mist with a sweep of his dragon's will. Of course, his dragon's will was still in the recovery stage. Therefore, the range of his dragon's will had been greatly reduced, only about 10 kilometers in radius. But even so, embark was able to hunt down these infected creatures at an extremely fast speed. A single level 1 desolate beast gave him 100,000 evolution points. In a short 10 days, his evolution points had reached more than 30 billion. He estimated that he would be able to reach 100 billion in a month. At the same time, on the continent more than 3,000 kilometers away from the first hunting island, the leader of the Black Tua gang was burning with anxiety. Chapter 248. The center of the Flaming Land was a large continent. There were more than 20 large hunting islands around it. There was a hunting ground on each hunting island. The closest hunting island to the first hunting island was more than 3,000 kilometers away. In the Great Sun County of Yuzhou, there was a gang called the Black Pack Gang. This gang was a first-rate faction in the Great Sun County. It had 50,000 members. The gang leader, Uru, had reached level 9. Most importantly, they had 2 mechas on the surface. In fact, they had 6 mechas in secret. However, the first-rate faction in the Great Sun County could only be considered a third-rate faction in the entire Yuzhou. Uru had always thought that the Black Pack Gang couldn't grow because they didn't have their own mines. Therefore, a few days ago, when the vice leader of the Sandstorm mercenary group came and said that he had found a mine, he immediately sent someone to investigate. And the person he sent was his own son. However, who would have thought that after more than 10 days, there was still no news of him? He tried to contact him countless times, but there was no reply. He then sent people to the Sandstorm mercenary group, but the entire Sandstorm mercenary group had disappeared. This caused him to panic a little. He could only send someone to the first hunting island to investigate. In the end, he found traces of human activity on the first hunting island. Therefore, on this day, he decided to go to the first hunting island himself. And he brought a cheetah mecha. On this day, embark was killing wild beasts. However, at this moment, about 1,000 people were flying to the first hunting island on hover skates. Behind them, there were 6 flying mechas flying towards them at high speed. embark had already discovered these people through the virtual watchtowers around the island. When he saw the 6 flying mechas, embark couldn't help but feel happy. Flying mechas were more advanced than ordinary mechas. He didn't expect the people of the Flaming Land to be so hospitable. Seeing that he was new here and lacked mechas, they took the initiative to send them over. Since that was the case, there was no reason not to accept. Thinking of this, embark quickly called the little monk over. The little monk's hand was still on the game console. He didn't even raise his head and asked, "Boss, you called me?" embark said, "What's the point of playing games all the time? There are a few flying mechas out there. Think of a way to get them for me." Hearing this, the little monk's eyes lit up. It was as shiny as his bald head. He had long since gotten bored of the mechas on Hunting Island 1. Now that he had a flying mech to play with, he was naturally excited. "Alright, boss. Just do your best to buy me some time." embark nodded. "Just do your own thing and don't worry about anything else." The small monk nodded. Then he tapped the keyboard on his waist twice and activated it. Then his fingers flew quickly on the keyboard. As if he was chanting scriptures, he kept muttering, "Amitba, that's good." Attempting to establish a remote connection successful. Analyzing firewall code. Beginning to implant cracking program. At the same time, the leader of the Black Pack Gang arrived in the air above the base with over 1,000 people. They saw that in the center of the first hunting island, which was originally blood red, there was a large green space. They couldn't help but be surprised that there were still humans and mechs moving around on this patch of green. Ulu said to the keyboard player behind him, "Release the drones for reconnaissance." The keyboard player replied, "Yes, boss." With that, he released more than 500 drones. However, just as these 500 drones took off, Whoosh 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 whoosh, more than 500 blue light beams suddenly shot out from the mountain top in the distance without warning. They accurately hit these drones. Boom 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 boom. All the drones instantly emitted sparks. They fell from the sky. The keyboard player was stunned. On the other hand, Ulu's expression turned extremely ugly. One had to know that all his drones were equipped with energy shields. They could resist telekinesis, physical and energy attacks. People below the level of a desolate hunter couldn't cause any harm to them at all. Obviously, those blue light beams that had just shot out should be some kind of high-tech weapon. He didn't expect that this island, which was occupied by infected creatures everywhere, would have high-tech weapons that even he didn't know about. Of course, he didn't know that these drones of emoshers were obtained from the system. They were completely ahead of the Flaming Land's drones. They had energy beams that could penetrate the energy shields of the Flaming Land's drones. At this time, Ulu was floating in the air with more than 1,000 people, and they became living targets for Emosher's drones. Of course, Ulu was not stupid. He quickly realized this and immediately ordered everyone, "Let's go. Land immediately, quick." Everyone was shocked and quickly followed Ulu to land on the ground. At the same time, Ulu said to the keyboard player, "Order the mechas to land now." The keyboard player hurriedly operated for a while. In the sky, the 6 mechas landed on the ground. The mechas clicked and quickly transformed into the cheetah mecha. Many people in the Flaming Land were in love with the cheetah mecha. It was fast, had outstanding combat ability, and could adapt to various terrains on the battlefield. "Let the cheetah mecha scout ahead," Ulu ordered. The keyboard player replied, "Yes." He immediately controlled the 6 mechas and drilled into the blood-red forest ahead. At the same time, the upper left of the screen showed the images taken by the 6 mechas. It was also at this time that a figure suddenly appeared in the sky without warning. "You trespassed on Hunting Island 1 with mechas. This is not very friendly." Everyone heard this and looked up. In the sky, a young man who looked to be in his 20s was floating there. He was dressed in black. Behind him was a pair of blood-red wings that were more than 6 meters wide. The strange thing was that these blood-red wings were not solid, but condensed from energy. One had to know that on the Flaming Land, the only way hunters could use energy was to release it through energy weapons. Only after becoming a hunter could they condense energy into various weapons or wings. Could it be that this guy was a hunter? However, he quickly came to his senses. Judging from the energy fluctuations on this guy, he was probably only a level 2 hunter. The reason why he could condense energy into wings should be because he used some special skill. Thinking of this, he asked coldly, "Where is my son, Erden?" Seeing that this guy's tone was so stiff, Emosher did not give him face. He directly said 2 words, "Killed." What? Ulu's expression suddenly became extremely ugly. His son was dead. Although he had already guessed that his son might be dead, guessing and actually having it confirmed were 2 completely different concepts. Now that he heard it from a stranger, how could he, as a father, remain calm? Chapter 249. Wu Lu, the leader of the Black Tuo gang, had heard that Emosher had killed his son. Moreover, he said it in such a casual tone, as if he had just slapped an ant to death. This made Wu Lu's heart surge with anger. As a father, after learning that his son had been killed by this guy in front of him, that kind of hatred and anger could not be imagined by those who had not experienced it personally. However, Wu Lu was the leader of a first-rate force in the Great Sun County. Naturally, he was not brainless. He did not immediately step forward. Instead, he said to a level 6 psychic master beside him, "Kill him. Tear him to shreds." The level 6 psychic master also knew how angry the leader was. He did not say much. With a thought, he directly enveloped Emosher. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt an enormous wave of psychic power pressing down on his body. If he continued to tear apart the guy in the air without caring, then his own body was likely to be torn apart. Therefore, he quickly withdrew his psychic power and protected his body. In the past, even if he used psychic power to protect his body, he would be easily torn apart by Emosher's psychic power. But today, Emosher's dragon had only recovered by 10%. Secondly, Emosher wanted to stall for time. So Emosher was just scaring him. This level 6 psychic master did not dare to release his psychic power outside his body. Seeing that the kid did not move at all, Wooloo suddenly turned his head. His eyes were bloodshot because of anger, and he glared fiercely at the level 6 psychic master. The level 6 psychic master quickly explained. Leader, that kid is also a psychic master, and it is very likely that his psychic power level is on par with mine. Hearing this, Wooloo snorted coldly. No wonder he is so arrogant. Then he said to a level 8 hunter beside him, "Shoot him down." The level 8 hunter naturally knew what the leader meant. He immediately pulled down the sleeve of his right arm. The mechanical arm inside was revealed. Soon, the mechanical arm was wrapped in a layer of cuticle. The cuticle quickly turned into a red-white energy weapon. Whoosh! A red and white energy beam instantly shot out from his energy weapon towards Emosher. However, just as this energy beam was about to hit Emosher, Emosher suddenly stopped. An energy barrier suddenly appeared in front of Emosher. In fact, it should be called an energy barrier. Not only did it cover Emosher, but it also covered Emosher and the entire base behind him. This energy shield was made up of countless hexagons the size of houses. When the energy beam hit the energy barrier was shattered. There was no reaction from the energy shield at all. As for Emosher, who was within the light barrier, he was safe and sound. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. Leader, they have a defensive barrier. Such a large defensive area, this is F*King abnormal. It should be known that most defensive light shields were basically used to protect mechas, or at most, a house. Here, on the other hand, the defensive light barrier covered a radius of 50 kilometers. How many crystal sources did it take to support such a large consumption? It seemed that it was true that there was a vein of crystal sources on Hunting Island 1. At this moment, whoosh, a black shadow suddenly shot out from behind Emosher. Its speed was extremely fast, like a black lightning bolt. Poof! It instantly pierced through the chest of the hunter who had attacked Emosher. And it directly nailed him to the ground. When the Black Tua gang members saw this, they were all shocked. One hit to kill a level 8 hunter. That meant that the opponent had at least a level 9 hunter. It was not only the gang members who were shocked. Even the leader of the Black Tua gang felt his heart skip a beat. Originally, if this kid was only a level 8 psychic master, he would have been able to kill him with his own strength. But now that the opponent had a level 9 hunter, it was somewhat troublesome. Fortunately, he had brought 6 mechas today. Thinking of this, he ordered the keyboard player next to him. Find that level 9 hunter first and kill him for me. The keyboard player replied, yes. His fingers quickly danced on the virtual keyboard. But soon he realized that something was wrong. Because he was too surprised, he could not help but make a sound. Someone next to him asked, "What's wrong?" The keyboard player stared at the screen. He saw that there were 6 mechas on the screen. Originally, these 6 mechas were all green. But now, one of the mechas had turned red. Lost contact? The person asked. The keyboard player's face was very ugly as he nodded. Hearing this, Ulu also looked at the virtual screen. Then he shouted fiercely, "Forget about the mecha. Ignore that mecha for now. Get the other mecha to come over and take that brat down." "Yes," the keyboard player hurriedly said. Soon, he controlled the remaining 5 mechas and rushed back here. However, after only a minute, his 2 fingers suddenly stopped moving. His face was even uglier than before, because the virtual screen showed that another mecha had lost contact. But at this time, he did not dare to report this news to the leader. The leader had just learned of his son's death, and then he had suffered a series of setbacks. If he continued to report bad news at this time, with the leader's temper, there was a high possibility that he would be killed on the spot in a rage. So the keyboard player's hands only paused for a moment before he continued to operate again. But after another minute, another mecha had lost contact. The keyboard player's forehead was already covered in fine beads of sweat. Fortunately, at this time, the remaining 3 mechas had all returned. He quickly controlled the 3 mechas and raised their heads. Ulu, who was next to him, saw that only 3 mechas had returned. He already understood what had happened. He glanced at the screen. Sure enough, the patterns of 3 mechas had turned red. But at this time, he did not have time to care about this. His bloodshot eyes stared fiercely at embark in the sky. "Fire for me!" He almost gnashed his teeth as he shouted. His voice was shocking, full of the grief and hatred in the heart of a father who had just lost his son. Even the gang members behind him, whose hearts were as hard as iron, were shocked when they heard their leaders roar. One by one, they could not help but be moved. However, after Ulu shouted that sentence, the 3 mechas didn't respond at all. Ulu was stunned. He suddenly turned his head and stared at the screen. On the screen, the images of the 6 mechas had all turned red. At the same time, 4 words were displayed on the screen: "Lost contact." Chapter 250. The keyboard player followed Ulu's orders and wanted to attack. But he suddenly found that all 6 mechas had lost connection. The 3 mechas in front of him were clearly standing there with their heads raised, staring at embark in the sky. But they were motionless. No matter how he operated them, the 3 mechas were like stone sculptures. Ulu also noticed that something was wrong at this moment. He glanced at the virtual screen and immediately became furious. "Get the mechas back now!" The flames of fury in his eyes were about to burst out. The keyboard player was suddenly frightened. His clothes were soaked in sweat in a short time. He nodded repeatedly. "Yes, yes." His fingers danced quickly on the keyboard. At the same time, Little Monk's report came in embark's mind. "Boss, it's done." Embark was secretly amazed. This Little Monk really had some skills. Not only did he control the spider drones, but he also destroyed all the drones of the other party. And at the same time, he also cracked all 6 of the other party's mechas. If there was a genius in the world, it had to be this kid. After all, he had only been exposed to the computers of the Flaming Land for less than half a year, and he could play with them to such an extent. Even the keyboard player of the other party was helpless. Thinking of this, embark ordered Little Monk in his mind. "Test the combat power of their mechas." Little Monk's voice quickly came. "Listen to you, boss." At the same time, the keyboard player of the Wu Tuo gang, after a period of nervous operation, their 3 mechas finally made their move. Not only did these 3 mechas move, but the other 3 lost mechas also rushed back. When the others around saw this, they were all delighted. This keyboard player was really capable. He solved the problem in such a short time. However, no one knew how frightened the keyboard player was at this moment. The lost mechas had indeed returned, and the 3 mechas in front of him had indeed moved. However, it was not under his control at all. It seemed that another person was controlling these 6 mechas. In other words, in just a few minutes, that person had cracked the firewall program of these 6 mechas and taken control of these 6 mechas. What kind of heaven-defying genius was this? Ulu did not know this. Like everyone else, he thought that the keyboard player had solved the problem. He immediately pointed at embark in the sky and roared at the keyboard player. "Kill him!" When the keyboard player heard this, his legs immediately went soft. Gang leader, Ulu had been impatient for a long time. "I told you to kill him, so do it immediately. Why are you spouting so much nonsense?" "No, gang leader, these 6 mechas are not controlled by me." When everyone heard this, they quickly reacted. In the next moment, everyone was terrified. If he wasn't the one controlling it, then it must be someone else. It was important to note that the combat power of each mech was equivalent to that of a level 1 Desolate Hunter. And now, these 6 Desolate Hunters were being controlled by someone else. All of them were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Thinking of this, everyone had no time to think and hurriedly fled in all directions in fear. The next moment, whoosh 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 whoosh, above the 6 cheetah mechas, fiery red energy beams are constantly shooting out. These energy pillars were like sharp swords. They pierced into these people's bodies and cut off their heads. There was a sudden scream at the scene. "Ah, my hand. No, I don't want to die." Whether it was the desolate hunters or the psychic masters, in front of these 6 mechas, they were simply a group of ants. Their energy weapons and psychic power could not destroy the energy shields of these 6 mechas. However, the energy beams fired out by the 6 mechs could easily sever their bodies. There were even 2 mechas that did not use energy to attack. Instead, they directly pounced. Roar. With a mechanical roar, it pounced on a level 7 desolate hunter. Its sharp claws pierced directly into the desolate hunter's chest. It pulled violently. Rip! It actually tore the level 7 desolate hunter in half. It pounced again and pushed another level 7 psychic master to the ground. It opened its mouth. Crack! It actually bit off the level 7 psychic master's head. When embark saw this, he naturally understood that this was the little monk's intention. This little monk, killing in the game, was not enough to satisfy him. He actually let these mechas use such a bloody method to directly kill these people. He did not look like a monk at all. Of course, embark had no objection to this. As the island owner of the number 1 hunting island, did these people greet him when they came to the number 1 hunting island? For those who dared to invade the number 1 hunting island, they should be more ruthless. This was a massacre. Those so-called desolate hunters and psychic masters had no power to fight back in front of these mechas. Not only did they not have the power to fight back, but their speed was also much slower than these mechas. They could not escape even if they wanted to. In just half a minute, hundreds of people had been slaughtered. Wu Lu, the leader of the Wu Tuo gang, saw this and was greatly shocked. In the past, when he brought these 6 mechas to slaughter other forces, he only felt very happy and carefree. But today, it was his turn to be slaughtered. Only now did he know that this was the feeling of being a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. It seemed that even he, a level 9 desolate hunter, was about to be slaughtered. He quickly took out something that looked like a lipstick stick. He pressed it gently. In the next moment, his body turned into a bluish-white ball of light. In less than half a second, the bluish-white ball of light had disappeared. At the same time, Little Monk's voice sounded in embark's mind. "I'm sorry, boss." Their boss escaped. Damn it. The corners of embark's mouth curled into a faint arc. He said, "It's okay." He naturally knew that the Wu Tuo gang leader had used the wormhole teleportation technique. It could teleport his body to another place in a short time. However, embark had already spent 10 billion evolution points to sign out a strain of Virus 0 and implanted it into his body. As early as when embark knew they were coming, he had already thought of this move. He knew that if the flaming continent remained peaceful, there would be frequent visitors to the number 1 hunting island. After all, if the entire number 1 hunting island was infected, it would be very conspicuous on the entire continent. Moreover, although not many people knew about the crystal source vein under the number 1 hunting island, it was still not a small number. If he wanted to stop these people from coming, he had to create more chaos. He had to attract the attention of those people. As long as the world was in chaos, no one would pay attention to the number 1 hunting island. Then, embark could use this time to develop quickly. When they sorted out the chaos and returned their attention to the number 1 hunting island, they would be surprised to find that the number 1 hunting island had already become an existence that they could only look up to. Chapter 251. Hunting Island Number 1, at the edge of the Scarlet Forest. 6 cheetah mechas were slaughtering more than 1,000 people. Blood flowed like a river, and broken limbs flew everywhere. embark looked at the 6 cheetah mechas with neither sadness nor joy on his face. There was nothing to be happy about getting these 6 cheetah mechas. After all, his goal was an army of mechas. 6 cheetah mechas were nothing. On the contrary, the 6 cheetah mechas he obtained today made him fall into deep thought. These 6 mechas originally belonged to the Black Pack gang. Now that the monk had cracked the firewall, they were slaughtering the Black Pack gang members. Then, one day, if he had a mecha army, he would be able to do so. If the firewall was cracked by others, this mecha army would turn on him and even massacre the entire base. Then, wouldn't he have no power to fight back at all? Gradually, the screams became fewer and fewer. The number of people still standing on the ground became fewer and fewer. When the last person was slaughtered, embark said to the monk in his mind, "If there's a chance, make an anti-cracking program." The little monk's voice sounded, "Okay, boss, I thought about it just now. With an anti-cracking program, it's impossible for them to take our mechas over." Embark shook his head and said, "What I mean is, let them take the mechas over." The little monk reacted quickly, "Boss, you mean to let them think that they have cracked our firewall and take the mechas over? In fact, they haven't cracked it at all. After they take it over, I'll control it again, and the mechas will be able to kill them over there?" Embark nodded, "Yes." The little monk chuckled, "Hee hee, not bad, boss, you're so cunning. I admire you." Embark added, "That's right. Also, add a self-destruct program. If we really can't control it anymore, these mechas will self-destruct." The little monk said, "Boss, you're so thoughtful. Don't worry, I'll make it for you within a month." After talking about business, the little monk sighed again, "Boss, it was really fun killing just now. Next time, if there's such an opportunity, you must bring me along." Embark laughed, "You really don't look like a monk." The little monk chuckled and said, "I'm just helping them transcend. I'm doing good deeds and accumulating merit. Amitba." Next, embark continued to look through the memories of the gang leader of the Black Pack gang. From his memories, he learned a lot of useful information. At the same time, embark once again checked the information about the ancient dragon battlefield. Moreover, Wu Lu clearly knew more about the ancient dragon battlefield than his son did. He even knew which province the ancient dragon battlefield was located in. This made embark's heart burn with passion once again. At the same time, in Dari Prefecture of Yuzhou Province. This was one of the more remote prefectures on the Flaming Dawn continent. In the entire county, the largest faction was the Black Pack Gang. In the courtyard of the Black Pack Gang's headquarters, a ball of light suddenly appeared without warning. Then, the blue and white light condensed into the silhouette of a human. It was none other than Wu Lu, the leader of the Black Pack Gang. After Wu Lu appeared, he was still in a state of shock. He strode into the main hall. His wife heard the footsteps and hurriedly came up to him. "Gang leader, where's our son? Did you find him?" But after saying this, she found that something was wrong. She saw that the gang leader's eyes were still bloodshot. His hair was messy, and there was even a trace of shock on his face. She hurriedly asked with concern, "Gang leader, what happened?" Ulu's expression was ugly. But he couldn't directly tell this woman the news of his son's death. He only said, "We're in trouble. The 1,000 people I brought are all dead, and the 6 mechas were all taken." "Ah," the woman was shocked and hurriedly asked, "How did this happen?" Gang leader Ulu slammed his fist on the stone table. Crash! The stone table instantly shattered into pieces. He gritted his teeth and said, "Where there's life, there's hope. One day, I'll kill my way to the first hunting island. I'll kill that kid." The woman knew that she couldn't say anything else. She agreed and said, "As long as you're fine, we can regroup and buy a few more mechas. Or, we can also join forces with the other forces in the other counties and kill our way to the first hunting island. Raze that place to the ground. Avenge our 1,000 brothers." These words were exactly what Wu Lu wanted to hear. He immediately ordered, "Men, prepare the gifts. I'll go find the other forces now." However, as soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. His expression changed drastically, and his entire body froze on the spot. Seeing this, the woman's beautiful face also turned pale. She asked in shock, "Gang leader, what's wrong?" The gang leader didn't have time to pay attention to her at this time. He only felt that something seemed to be expanding rapidly in his body. He didn't have time to say anything, let alone do anything. The next moment, bang, within his body, a blood-red shockwave quickly spread out. It instantly rushed out of his body and spread to the entire main hall, and then to the entire Black Tuo gang. This shockwave seemed to have no impact. It rushed to people, and even to the flowers and plants, but the flowers and plants didn't even shake. However, whether it was people, flowers, plants, or trees, after being affected by the shock wave, they quickly changed. The woman and the gang members of Black Tuaw gang quickly had greenish-black veins on their skin. Their eyes also turned grayish-white. However, unlike the zombies on Earth, their grayish-white eyes were more bloodshot. They looked more terrifying than the zombies on Earth. Each of them had become evolved zombies. The flowers and plants in the courtyard quickly became tall and big. At the same time, they also turned scarlet. Thick sanguisurincus began to hang down from the trees outside the courtyard. These sanguisurincus seemed to be alive, like blood snakes, constantly twisting. It looked even more strange and terrifying. At the same time, the blood-red shock wave continued to spread outwards. 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 50 kilometers. It didn't stop until it spread out to a radius of 100 kilometers. Within this range of 100 kilometers, all creatures became infected. And all of the infected creatures had a trace of Emosher's dragon will in their bodies. Emosher could easily know the situation within the range of the virus 0 infection. After discovering this, a smile appeared on Emosher's face. He knew that in the next period of time, the infected animals within the infection range would continue to move around. The entire infection range would continue to expand. And the news of the infection here would quickly spread throughout Yuzhou. At that time, the infection of Great Sun County would attract a lot of attention. As for his hunting island number 1, he would be able to develop in silence. Chapter 252. Emosher used the strand of dragon intent he had left on Ulu to investigate the situation in the Great Sun County. He was temporarily relieved. His next short-term goal was to quickly collect evolution points and upgrade the system. Only by upgrading the system could he increase his strength quickly. Then he could quickly become a desolate hunter and go to the ancient dragon battlefield. Thus, Emosher crazily killed desolate beasts on the first hunting island. With his strength, killing hundreds of desolate beasts every hour was not a problem. That was tens of millions of evolution points. In a day, he would earn 300 to 500 million evolution points. Adding on the clones on Earth, the level 10 psychokinesis, and the sea dragon clone, he could earn 300 to 500 million evolution points every day. Emosher earned 7 to 1 billion evolution points every day. Even so, he felt that it was still a bit slow. Fortunately, after a few days, his telekinesis had slowly recovered to a radius of 100 kilometers. The speed of killing infected creatures had greatly increased. He would earn more than 2 billion evolution points every day. At the same time, in the Great Sun County of Yuzhou, the princess's manor. The princess looked at the messages on the screen and felt a headache. Estimated death toll is more than 2 million. With the Black Tuaw gang as the center, everything within a radius of 130 kilometers has been infected and turned blood red. The infection range is still expanding. According to experts, if it is not controlled, the infection range will reach 300 kilometers within a month. It was not the first time a virus had leaked on the Flaming Continent. The Flaming Continent had more than 20 hunting islands and more than 20 hunting grounds. The owners of these hunting grounds were responsible for releasing all kinds of viruses into the hunting grounds and giving birth to powerful infected creatures. The desolate hunters could go to these hunting grounds to gain experience. Thus, if they were not careful, the virus would leak. However, since they could release these viruses, they naturally had a lot of research on them. They were very clear on how these viruses spread and their weaknesses. Thus, even if there was a virus leak, they could control it in a very short time. However, the virus that leaked this time was a new type of virus. The princess sent out several groups of experts to study this new type of virus. In the end, they found that with their current methods, they could not kill this virus. Even the disinfectant known as 10,000 poison extermination was useless. This was the main reason why the princess was having a headache. 2 strategists stood behind the princess. Princess, we should report this to the governor as soon as possible. Otherwise, if things get out of hand, we won't be able to bear the consequences. A long-bearded strategist said. The princess remained silent. Another strategist with a fair complexion shook his head. I don't think it's appropriate. If the governor knew that our princess was unable to resolve this matter, wouldn't he doubt our princess's ability? And if we can't solve it, we'll report it to the governor. It's like throwing a big problem to the governor. Will the governor be happy? If the governor is unhappy, none of us will have a good time. The long-bearded tactician stared at the fair-skinned tactician and said angrily, human lives are at stake. How can we abandon the lives of the common people for the sake of a black veil on our heads? The fair-skinned strategist sneered. Even if it's a matter of life and death, you can't throw the trouble to the leaders. Our mission is to help the leaders solve their problems. The long-bearded tactician was also angry. His voice rose an octave. Then what do you think we should do? The fair-skinned tactician looked coldly at the long-bearded tactician. It's simple. Just 2 words. The princess's eyes flashed as she looked at the fair-skinned strategist. The fair-skinned strategist said slowly, nuclear flattening. The long-bearded strategist shook his head. I knew you wouldn't say anything good. Have you forgotten what the Continental Nuclear Weapons Convention says? If people know that we used nuclear weapons without permission, I'm afraid. The fair-skinned strategist interrupted the long-bearded strategist. How big is the continent? Our great Sun County is just a small place. We'll clear the area first and then detonate the nuclear bombs. Who will know? Plus, how many nuclear bombs are detonated every year on the continent? Have you done a count? 300. Do you think no one will know if more than 300 nuclear bombs are detonated? We're all adults. There are a lot of things that people just turn a blind eye to. Don't take it too seriously. The long-bearded strategist shook his head. If everyone thinks the same way as you do, the Flaming Dawn continent will be finished in less than 500 years. The fair-skinned strategist was amused and laughed. We hunters can live up to 200 years old at most. We don't care about what happens 500 years later. Maybe we'll find another habitable planet in 500 years and migrate. The long-bearded strategist wanted to say something, but the princess spoke first. Then let's just do it. The long-bearded strategist paused, then shook his head and sighed. Sigh. This was the current situation of the Flaming Origin continent. He couldn't do anything by himself. Therefore, they used 3 days to move the people around the infected area to a place far away from the infected area. They also used drones to check the infected area to make sure that there were no humans around. Then, they dropped a nuclear bomb on the infected area. Flames shot up into the sky, and a huge mushroom cloud rose. The shockwave destroyed all the buildings within a radius of more than 100 kilometers in a very short time. Not even a blade of grass grew on the ground. However, 3 hours after the explosion, when they sent the drone to investigate again, they found nothing. They were shocked to find that the infected creatures that had been destroyed by the nuclear explosion were quickly recovering. This new virus had a strong self-healing ability. Not only could the nuclear bomb not kill them, even the cells that were killed by the radiation of the nuclear explosion could be quickly repaired. This discovery caused a wave of panic in the princess's heart. The strategist's already pale face turned even paler. There was almost nothing in the Flaming Origin continent that couldn't be killed by nuclear bombs. And now, this virus wasn't afraid of nuclear bombs at all. Not being afraid of nuclear bombs meant that it wasn't afraid of anything. Didn't that mean that if protective measures weren't taken as soon as possible and this virus was allowed to spread, the entire Flaming Origin continent would be doomed? Finally, the strategist said to the princess, "Princess, I'm afraid this virus is not simple. We have to report to the governor." The princess's expression was extremely serious as she nodded. She only said one word, "Okay." Soon, the governor learned about what happened in the Great Sun County. His first reaction was to do the same. But when he learned that the virus wasn't even afraid of nuclear bombs, he panicked. He quickly organized manpower and physical resources to build a quarantine zone around the infected area. At the very least, the virus couldn't be allowed to continue spreading. The incident in the infected area of the Great Sun County attracted the attention of almost everyone in Yuzhou. The few forces who knew that there was a crystal source vein on Hunting Island number 1 had temporarily given up on the idea of going to Hunting Island number 1. They felt that it was better to wait for a while. It would be safer to go out after the new virus was eliminated. Chapter 253. Those forces all set their sights on the Great Sun County. This gave emosure a chance to develop. He continued to sign in every day, and at the same time, he continued to kill those infected creatures. Hunting Island number 1 was extremely large. Its area was probably similar to the area of China on Earth. On such a large area, the number of desolate beasts was in the tens of billions. After nearly 2 months of killing, Emoshure's evolution points had gradually approached 100 billion. Finally, on this day, when his dragon will swept across again, all the desolate beasts within a radius of 150 kilometers exploded into a bloody mist. A notification sounded in his mind. Frowny face. The total number of evolution points has reached 100 billion points. The system can be upgraded. Do you want to upgrade immediately? Emosure was overjoyed. He was finally going to upgrade. However, he didn't upgrade immediately. Instead, he took a few steps and jumped back into the base. He hadn't signed in yet today. Soon after signing in, he said in his mind, "Upgrade now." The system's voice quickly sounded. Frowny face. This upgrade will consume 100 billion evolution points. Do you want to confirm the upgrade? Of course, quickly upgrade. Emosure couldn't wait to rub his hands. He felt that his palms were sweating. Although it wasn't the first time he upgraded. However, because he had waited for too long this time, and because his strength had been increasing very slowly recently, he hoped that after the system upgraded, his strength would increase faster. Therefore, he was full of expectations for this upgrade. This upgrade will take 24 hours. During the upgrade, you cannot sign in. The system's voice sounded again. Emosure was slightly stunned. In the past, it only took 12 hours to upgrade, but this time it actually took 24 hours? Whatever, I'll upgrade first. For the next day, Emosure stayed in the base obediently and didn't go anywhere. Although it was only 24 hours, only one day. However, because he was too expectant, Emosure felt that each day was like a year. It seemed that waiting quietly wasn't a solution. Something had to happen to make time pass faster. Fortunately, something happened in the afternoon. Emma brought her son into Emoshure's office. "Master, my strength has increased." Hearing this, Emoshure opened the blood dragon's eye and looked at Emma. Species, Blood Clan, Level 1 Vampire, Level 1 Psychic. Emoshure's heart was filled with joy. Level 1 Evolved Vampire was equivalent to a Level 1 Hunter. Emma was the first person to reach the level of a scavenger other than himself. If the base wanted to develop, the scavenger hunters were indispensable. Don't forget that Emma is also a psychic master. This allowed her to crush Level 2 scavenger. He could even challenge a Level 3 hunter by 2 levels. Thinking of this, Emosure had an idea. Emma had become a Level 10 super mutant blood breed after absorbing Dracula's blood. Then, he stayed in the base for a few months and reached Level 1 to evolve into a vampire. In that case, he could sign in and get some Dracula's blood from the system. For others to absorb, turning them all into Level 10 super mutant blood breeds. With the help of the Dragon Palace, these Level 10 super mutant blood breeds could become Level 1 evolved blood breeds within a few months. In fact, he had thought of this when he first came to the Flaming Dawn continent. However, at that time, he had to sign in at various places to increase the equipment of the base. He also had to constantly sign in to increase his strength. Therefore, he could only put this idea aside for now. Now that the system was about to be upgraded, perhaps after the upgrade, the speed of his strength increase would be greatly accelerated. Then, he would be able to free up some sign-in opportunities, sign in Dracula's blood, and create Level 10 super mutant blood breeds. Emosure carefully sized up Emma, who had just leveled up. He saw that her figure seemed to be getting better. She was fat where she should be fat, and thin where she should be thin. There was not a trace of extra fat. She did not look dry. Moreover, her every movement exuded the charm of a mature woman. Even someone as determined as Emo couldn't help but feel a little emotional. She was simply a natural beauty. Emo said, after being promoted to level 1 evolved blood breed, your level is equivalent to a level 1 scavenger and a level 1 wild beast. If you want to increase your strength faster, you can go outside the base to gain experience. Emma nodded. Yes, master. Then she walked out with her son, who had a dull look in his eyes. Emosher thought for a moment and said, you can leave your son in the base and let Happy take care of him. This way, it will be more convenient for you to gain experience. A hint of panic flashed in Emma's eyes. As Emosher's servant, who had been transformed by Emosher with Dracula's blood, she should have been 100% obedient to any of Emosher's orders. But only when it came to her son did she feel a little reluctant to part with him. She pleaded, Master, please let me take care of my son. Without him by my side, I feel uneasy. I know that I disobeyed your orders, and you can punish me however you want. I just beg you to let me take care of my son. Emosher smiled and comforted her. This is not an order, just a suggestion. Since being separated from your son will distract you, then you should take him with you. The panic in Emma's eyes immediately turned into gratitude. Thank you, Master. Thank you, Master. After Emma left, Happy walked in. She looked at the backs of the mother and son with pity in her eyes. She gestured to Emosher. Brother Emo, do you have a way to restore her son's intelligence? They are so pitiful. Emosher shook his head and said, I don't have a solution yet. Maybe there will be one in the future. Happy nodded and gestured. Thank you, Brother Emo. Emosher shook his head and said with a smile, What are you thanking me for? I was planning to restore her son's intelligence when I could do it in the future. That night, the moonlight gently leaped in through the bedroom window and caressed Happy's cheeks. Emosher looked at Happy's side profile that was outlined by the moonlight and listened to her even breathing. A feeling called happiness slowly spread in his heart. After being reborn, he was able to meet such a kind and considerate girl like Happy who could possess terrifying strength at critical moments. He was definitely lucky. But this analogy did not seem to be appropriate. He must have been lucky for 8 lifetimes. Therefore, he had to increase his strength as soon as possible and give her a stable and warm home. It was late at night. Happy was already sound asleep. Emosher was thinking about the system's upgrade, but he could not fall asleep no matter what. He quietly put on his clothes and went to the monk's room. More than 10 days ago, the monk had already created the anti-hacking program for the mecha. At that moment, he was working overtime, playing games. When he saw Emosher arrive, he quickly put out the cigarette in his hand and said the name of Buddha. Yo, Amitba. Boss, why are you here? It's the middle of the night. It's not very appropriate for you to suddenly come to my room and be seen by others. Emosher glared at him and said, Stop it. Cut the crap. Give me the game console. When he could not sleep at night, playing games was the best way to pass the time. Because as he played, he would realize that the more he played, the more energetic he became. The more he played, the more he could not sleep. Chapter 254. Emosher and the little monk played for an entire night. Speaking of which, the games in the Flaming Origin continent were indeed much more fun than those on Earth. The game's graphics were extremely realistic. Even the pores on a person's body and the texture of leaves could be seen clearly. Moreover, the game's plot and other aspects were definitely incomparable to those on Earth. After playing for an entire night, the little monk's eyes were already bloodshot. Although he was excited, his body was only equivalent to an ordinary person's body. Therefore, he looked a little tired. On the other hand, Emosher looked very energetic. This was the difference between the physique of a hunter and an ordinary person. Emosher only left the little monk's room after 8 o'clock in the morning. The people in the factory saw Emosher come out of the little monk's room early in the morning. They were a little surprised. After Emosher returned to his room, some people whispered, What happened? Was Mr. Emo kicked out of his room by Happy? He's homeless and can only go to the monk's room? I don't think so. Maybe Mr. Emo took the initiative to go to the little monk's room. Happy, so love can really disappear? After Emosure returned to his room, Happy saw that Emosure had returned. Although she was puzzled about where Emosure went last night, she also knew that Emosure had a lot of secrets. Since he didn't want to say, she didn't ask. Instead, she took the initiative to prepare breakfast for Emosure. Emosure looked at Happy's busy back and felt warm in his heart. He said, "I couldn't sleep last night, so I went to the little monk and played games for an entire night." Happy turned around with a smile on her face. Her smile was very contagious. It made people feel as if they were bathed in a spring breeze. After breakfast, Emosure wanted to lie on the bed and rest for a while. However, when he thought that the system's upgrade would be completed by noon, he couldn't help but be filled with anticipation. He still didn't feel sleepy. He could only lie on the bed and continue playing games. Speaking of which, this game called Ultimate Slaughter was getting more and more addictive the more he played it. He played until 12:25 noon. A notification suddenly sounded in his mind. System upgrade completed. When Emosure heard this, he was instantly overjoyed. He quickly put down the game console in his hand and checked it in his mind. Upgrade Reward 1, 100 drops of Dracula's blood. Upgrade Reward 2, Flying Mechas, 10 sets. Upgrade Reward 3, Wormhole Transportation Device, 1. Emosure looked at the rewards and nodded repeatedly. System, you're like a worm in my stomach. I'll get whatever I want. Just as he was about to ask for the blood of Dracula and the combat mech, he was rewarded. The wormhole teleportation device was also something he coveted. After all, there were almost no restrictions on the flaming origin continent. When he encountered danger, all he had to do was press the button, and he would be instantly teleported to the designated location. It was definitely a life-saving artifact. Then, the system notification sounded again. Content of this upgrade: reward for killing Titan Dragon Blood. Kill reward mechanism. Killing a creature equivalent to a level 1 dire beast will result in 1 drop of Titan Dragon Blood. Killing a creature equivalent to a level 2 dire beast will reward you with 2 drops of Titan Dragon Blood. And so on. When Emosure heard this notification, he suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. One had to know that he could only get 8 drops of Titan Dragon Blood every day. And now, he could get a drop of Titan Dragon Blood by killing a level 1 dire beast. If he could kill hundreds of dire beasts with a casual sweep of his dragon, wouldn't that mean that he could get hundreds of drops of Titan Dragon Blood? This was a little King perverted. Thinking of this, he swept his dragon will. Within a radius of more than 100 kilometers, 10 dire beasts exploded into a bloody mist. Then, there was no then. Emosure quietly waited for the notification to sound, but there was no sound. He couldn't help but ask in his mind, "System, where's the promised kill reward of Titan Dragon Blood?" The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face reward for killing. No dragon will or energy. You can only kill with your physical strength. *CK, why didn't you say so earlier? Emosure felt like he had been tricked. The system's voice sounded again frowny face. The giant dragon's strongest point is not its energy or technique. It's their physical strength and terrifying strength. To become a dragon, a heaven-defying physical strength is a must. The kill reward is to strengthen the host's body. Emosure understood that this was the system's good intentions. He didn't say anything else. Great success. Dragon Shadow Step activated. He instantly left the base. When he reappeared, he was already 100 kilometers away. He probed with his dragon will and began to look for level 1 to 3 dire beasts. With his strength as a level 2 hunter, it was already his limit to deal with level 3 dire beasts without using dragon will and energy. But because the dire beasts here were all strengthened by the Zero virus, so most of the dire beasts were above level 5. It was really difficult to find one below level 5. After searching for half an hour, he finally found an uninfected level 2 dire beast at the edge of Hunting Island 1. This time, Emosure asked in advance, "System, can I use Titan Dragon Claw?" The system's voice replied frowny face yes. Emosure asked again, "The invisible force of the Dragon Claw?" The system's voice sounded frowny face. Using invisible force is ineffective. You will only be rewarded if you rely on your own body's strength. He directly formed Titan Dragon Claw. He leaped up and slashed at the level 2 dire beast. That level 2 dire beast also directly pounced at Emoshur. Emoshur slightly tilted his body and dodged its sharp teeth and claws. The Titan dragon claw ruthlessly slashed across the side of its body. It directly slashed across the side of its body, leaving a long and bloody wound. Fresh blood instantly spurted out. However, compared to the dire beast's huge body, which was more than 30 meters long, this wound didn't cause much damage. And at this moment, this level 2 dire beast was enraged when it was hurt. Its body made a series of cracking sounds and rapidly grew in size. In just over 10 seconds, it grew to more than 200 meters long. In this way, the damage caused by the Titan Dragon Claw was almost negligible without the use of invisible force. Emoshur slightly frowned and asked the system, "Can I use genetic weapons?" The system replied, "Frowny face, a real giant dragon disdains to use genetic weapons." *CK. Emoshur cursed. He simply retracted his Titan Dragon Claw. Since he had to rely on his own strength, he might as well not use anything. He watched as the 200-meter-long level 2 dire beast pounced towards him once again. Emoshur leaped up and instantly reached a height of 10,000 meters. Then, he leaped up again and plunged headfirst into the ground at an extremely fast speed. His right hand was tightly clenched into a fist. Because he clenched it too tightly, his knuckles had turned white. Chapter 255. Emoshur descended from the sky like a meteorite, smashing towards the 200-meter-long dire beast. His speed was extremely fast. The dire beast could not dodge at all. Boom! His fist smashed into the desolate beast's head. The tremendous impact caused the ground beneath the desolate beast's feet to sink down. Then, its skull shattered with a cracking sound. It caved in. The dire beast's 200-meter-long body also crashed onto the ground. The ground within a radius of 500 meters had already cracked. A single punch from a human was enough to knock a 200-meter-long beast to the ground. This scene was extremely visually impactful. However, Emoshur knew that dire beasts would not die so easily. With the dire beast's strength, as long as the muscles and cells in its abdomen that stored energy were not destroyed, the energy would allow its body to quickly recover. As expected, the dire beast's sunken head was recovering at an extremely fast speed. However, its head was still heavily injured. Before its head recovered, it would not be able to stand up and fight again. Emoshur took advantage of this opportunity to move a kilometer away. Following which, using dragon shadow steps, he instantly rushed to its abdomen from a kilometer away. Using the huge inertia, he punched towards its abdomen. One had to know that the abdomen of a dire beast was its Achilles heel. Therefore, they were extremely protective of this place. Other than a thick layer of fat and muscle protection, there was also a layer of energy protection under the skin. Boom! Emoshur's punch landed heavily on the dire beast's abdomen. The huge force caused the dire beast to slide over 100 meters on the ground. It created a 200-meter wide scar on the ground. However, because of the light shield protecting its abdomen, it did not cause any substantial damage to its abdomen. At this moment, the dire beast's head had completely recovered. It opened its mouth and a ray of energy attacked Emoshur. However, Emoshur had already leaped up and once again used dragon shadow steps to jump 10,000 meters into the air. At the place where Emoshur was previously standing, a 200-meter-wide crater appeared on the ground after being hit by that ray of energy. Emoshur was once again smashed into the ground. The desolate beast had just spat out energy once, so it needed more than 10 seconds before it could spit out energy again. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Emoshur smashed down once more. The desolate beast's head caved in once again. At the same time, Emoshur arrived 10 kilometers away. Activating Dragon Shadow Step, he once again rushed to the abdomen of the desolate beast. He viciously smashed the desolate beast's abdomen. The desolate beast slid back 500 meters. Dozens of giant trees with a diameter of several meters were broken. However, its abdomen still did not suffer any substantial damage. However, when Emosher used his draconic will to investigate, he discovered that cracks had already appeared on the energy shield around its abdomen. He was overjoyed. With a leap, he dodged the second beam of energy from the desolate beast. For the third time, it leaped into the air and fell down, causing its skull to cave in. Once again, he used Dragon Shadow Step and charged over from 10 kilometers away, smashing into its abdomen. This time, there was finally the sound of glass shattering. The light shield around the big guy's abdomen directly shattered. The flesh on its abdomen was torn open. Emosher took the opportunity to quickly form Titan Dragon Claw and slashed at the thick fat on its abdomen. The desolate beast also realized the danger and hurriedly struggled to get up. However, it was already too late. The Titan Dragon Claw easily cut through the fat on its abdomen. A large amount of energy inside immediately flowed out. It kept dissipating in the air. And its head that was healing itself lost the support of energy and could no longer heal itself. After a moment, this 200-meter-long level 2 desolate beast finally stopped moving. The cells on its body began to die. Phew! Emosher let out a long breath. He was used to the assistance of draconic will and energy, so his battles had always been very easy. Now, without using draconic will and energy attacks, it was really not easy to fight with pure physical strength. If others knew what Emosher was thinking, they would probably vomit blood. Facing a desolate beast of the same level without using any energy attacks or telekinesis attacks, just relying on physical strength, he defeated this desolate beast in just 6 punches. It was completely a one-sided crushing. Was this not easy? If it were anyone else, they would not be able to do it at all. One had to know that the strongest aspect of a desolate beast was its physical strength. Now that you directly crushed a desolate beast of the same level with your physical strength, was this not easy? Of course, this was all because Emosher had taken countless drops of Titan Dragon blood and changed his physique. His physical strength, and other aspects were far superior to hunters of the same level. Otherwise, he would not be able to challenge a desolate beast of the same level with his bare hands. At this moment, the system's notification finally sounded in Emosher's mind. Killed 2 desolate beasts, obtained 2 drops of Titan Dragon blood. Emosher's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He checked his backpack and saw that there were indeed 2 small bottles there. He opened the bottles and absorbed the 2 drops of blood. Next, he continued to look for desolate beasts. Another half an hour later, he found a level 1 desolate beast. Against a level 1 desolate beast, Emosher killed it with just 1 punch. The system's notification sounded in his mind again. Killed 1 level 1 desolate beast, obtained 1 drop of Titan Dragon blood. In the following day, Emosher killed more than 50 desolate beasts. Most of them were below level 2. He obtained as many as 83 drops of Titan Dragon blood. Including the 8 drops he received from signing in, he had a total of 92 drops. This was more than 10 times the amount he obtained in a day. After consuming all the blood, Emosher felt that the energy in his body was surging. Every muscle in his body was filled with strength. At this rate, he would be able to level up again in at most a month. But Emosher was still not satisfied. It was not that he was not killing the desolate beasts fast enough. Most importantly, there were not that many level 1 and level 2 desolate beasts on the first hunting island. There were many level 5 desolate beasts, but with Emosher's current strength, he could not fight them alone with his bare hands. It seemed that he had to find a place with more level 1 and level 2 desolate beasts. The place with the most level 1 and level 2 desolate beasts was naturally the second hunting ground. On the planet where the second hunting ground was located, the highest level was a level 2 desolate beast. So if Emosher went there, not only would his life not be in danger, but he could also quickly kill the desolate beasts and obtain the Titan Dragon blood. As for the base, there were a total of 17 mechas guarding it, which was equivalent to 17 desolate hunters. In addition, the Dragon Palace could defend against any attack below the level of a desolate hunter. At the same time, it could kill any enemy below the level of a desolate hunter. So there was no need to worry. To go to any hunting ground, tickets were required. And the tickets were not cheap. To go to the second hunting island, a ticket cost 20,000. Chapter 256. A ticket to the second hunting ground cost 20,000. This was indeed a little expensive. However, one should not forget that embark had taken over the first hunting island. Naturally, he had taken over everything that had been on the island. That included Belki's cash and electronic currency. All of Belki's assets, including fixed assets, more than 100 million in electronic currency, and more than 2 million in cash. The electronic currency required facial recognition to be used. However, after more than 10 days of research, Little Monk had cracked the facial recognition program. He had replaced Belki's face with embark's. Therefore, embark was now a millionaire with 100 million and 2 million in cash. Of course, as the owner of the island, this amount of money was indeed a little embarrassing. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Belki had not managed his business well. He had squandered tens of billions of cash to this amount. However, with 100 million in cash, he was definitely an overlord on the mainland. Moreover, one should not forget that there was a crystal source vein under the first hunting island. It was worth a lot of money. Before going to the second hunting island, embark gathered everyone in the base. He said to these people, "I have a way to greatly increase your strength in a short period of time. You will be comparable to a level 10 great hunter." Everyone was overjoyed when they heard this. Among them, the strongest was only a level 2 great hunter. If he wanted to become a level 10 great hunter, it would take him at least 3 to 5 years to do so. As for the others, it was needless to say. Now that Mr. Mo could help them become level 10 great hunters in a short period of time, how could they not be excited? Of course, there were smart people among these people. They quickly raised a question. "Mr. Mo, there must be a condition to become a level 10 great hunter in a short period of time, right?" embark nodded and said, "Of course. There is only one condition to become a level 10 great hunter in a short period of time, and that is to become a blood kindred." Blood kindred. This. Hearing embark's words, everyone's heart shuddered. They were very excited when they heard that they could become level 10 great hunters in a short period of time. However, the price of this condition was too high. "Mr. Mo, after becoming a member of the Blood Clan, do you have to drink human blood continuously?" embark pointed at the curvaceous Emma. "This Emma has the most right to speak." Emma took a step forward. Every step she took revealed the fatal seduction of a mature woman. Although she did not deliberately seduce anyone, she was born with this kind of temperament. There was no other way. Many of the men below felt their throats dry up when they saw Emma. In the face of such a woman, there was no man who wouldn't be moved. Even if this woman was a vampire. Even the little monk's eyes lit up. However, those men quickly lowered their heads. She did not dare to look at Emma again. In their eyes, Emma was Mr. Mo's woman. Even though her relationship with Mr. Mo was not as close as Happy's relationship with Mr. Mo. However, any man would be tempted by such a woman who exuded a fatal temptation from head to toe. Mr. Mo was no exception. In that case, she was naturally Mr. Mo's woman. Who dared to have designs on Mr. Mo's woman? Wasn't that just courting death? Thinking of this, they didn't even dare to look at Emma. The little monk also put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice. "Amitba, it's all in vain." Emma glanced at the people below. Her voice was also full of temptation, although she was only speaking in a normal tone. After advancing to a level 10 super mutant vampire, the desire for human blood in your heart will be greatly reduced. You can completely use the blood of other creatures to replace human blood. Although human blood is still delicious in the eyes of level 10 super mutant vampires, it is not indispensable. As a former human, I can completely resist this temptation. embark spoke at this moment. "When I first found Emma, she was forcefully turned into a vampire. At that time, she was only a level 1 vampire. For level 1 vampires, human blood is a necessity. But at that time, she would rather starve to death than taste a mouthful of human blood that was delivered to her mouth. If even Emma could resist when she had to suck blood at level 1, Then when you become level 10 super mutant vampires, human blood is not a necessity. Could it be that you still can't resist? When the people below heard this, they all looked ashamed. Emma continued speaking. After becoming a vampire, there is one greatest benefit: immortality. As long as you continue to suck blood and maintain your body's condition, then you will have almost endless life. This sentence reminded everyone, and many people's eyes lit up. Although they already knew that the legendary vampires were almost immortal, but they did not really believe it. Even monsters like zombies would rot after hundreds of years. Naturally, vampires would not be spared. But now, hearing it from a vampire personally, they finally believed it a little. That was an endless life. Who did not want to live forever? Emosher looked at the people below, and each of their eyes lit up. He continued speaking. Of course, I will not force you. Everything will be voluntary. There are only 100 people in the first batch. If anyone wants to be turned into a vampire in the future, we will talk about it later. When everyone heard Emosher's words, they all raised their hands. Mr. Emo, I want to become a vampire. Mr. Emo, I want it too. Among them, the most enthusiastic ones were those who were still rank 1 and rank 2 hunters. They saw that the people around them had all become stronger, but because of their lack of talent, they had been stuck at level 1 or 2. Now that there was a chance to become a level 10 hunter, how could they not be excited? Emosher waved at Guijutao and gave him 100 small bottles. He said, "Pick 100 people and give each of them a bottle." Guijutao nodded and said, "Yes, Mr. Emo." So that night, there were 100 level 10 super mutant vampires in the base. Soon, these 100 people would become level 1 evolved vampires. At that time, the base's strength would be greatly improved. After doing all this, Emosher said to Emma, "It seems that your strength can only increase quickly by sucking more blood, and it must be the blood of creatures that are on par with you or beyond your strength." Emma nodded. "Yes, master." Emosher said, "With your strength, it will be too difficult to deal with the level 5 wild beasts on the island. Come with me to a place tomorrow." Emma had no objections. "Yes, master." The next morning, Emosher told Happy that he would be away for a few days. Even though Happy was reluctant to part with him, he still supported Emosher. He told Emosher to go and come back early. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Emosher took Emma and her son and left the base. When people saw the three of them leave, they all thought to themselves, "She really is Mr. Mo's woman." Some people muttered in their hearts, "Won't Happy be jealous?" When they turned around, they saw that Happy had already gone to the farm to work. Happy felt that the others were getting stronger quickly, but he was still an ordinary person. If he couldn't help much, he could only go to the farm. So he worked on the farm every day. The farm was named after her, Happy Farm. Chapter 257. The sun hung high in the sky above the blue sea. Emosher and Emma spent more than 5 hours flying across the sea and arrived at Hunting Island number 2. Hunting Island number 2 was about the same size as Hunting Island number 1. However, compared to the deserted Hunting Island number 1, Hunting Island number 2 was as busy as a marketplace. After all, there were countless level 1 and level 2 wild beasts in Hunting Ground number 1. It was suitable for level 1 to level 2 hunters to train here. Level 1 and level 2 hunters were the most numerous in the Flaming Land. When Emosher and Emma landed on Hunting Island number 1, they attracted a lot of attention. To be exact, it was Emma who attracted a lot of attention. The feminine charm that she exuded with every movement was truly irresistible. Of course, Emosher had noticed this. He frowned slightly. He didn't think it through. He wanted to let Emma improve her strength. However, looking at the current situation, it might cause some trouble. Although he wasn't a person who was afraid of trouble, he was afraid of trouble. Sigh, forget it. Since he's already here, let him be. As they walked forward with the crowd, they saw that the entire Hunting Island number 2 had all kinds of facilities. Entertainment, dining, leisure, socializing, everything was there. Emosher wasn't interested in these. He brought Emma and went straight to the ticketing hall. They used their real names to buy tickets. The monk had already forged Emma and Emma's information on the internet. At this moment, there were already long lines at more than 10 ticketing windows. Emma brought Emma and her son to the back of one of the lines. In front of them was a beautiful girl in her 20s. When she inadvertently turned around and saw Emma, she couldn't help but be stunned. Then, a hint of jealousy flashed in her eyes. She thought that she was already very beautiful, but in front of this woman, she actually felt a sense of inferiority. Emma didn't care about this. After a while, 5 people came from the line next to her. An insufferably arrogant young man and 4 middle-aged men. Emma secretly used the blood dragon's eye to look at the 5 of them. The young man was a level 1 hunter. Of the 4 middle-aged men behind him, 3 were level 6 scavengers and 1 was a level 4 psychic master. It was obvious that he was a young master from some major power who was here to gain experience. The 4 bodyguards around him were there to protect him. The young man glanced at the people in the ticketing hall and seemed a little impatient. But when he glanced at Emma, he suddenly looked away. He looked at Emma from head to toe. Especially when he saw Emma's curvaceous figure from the side, his eyes couldn't help but flicker with a certain flame. He had played with many women, but he had never seen one with such a beautiful figure and such a beautiful face. "Beauty, do you want to team up with me later?" He couldn't help but ask. Emma didn't even look at her. The young man sneered inwardly. He had seen too many women who pretended to be aloof. As long as he threw out some temptation, these women would rush to curry favor with him. They were all the same. He spoke again. "Beauty, I'm afraid it's not safe for you to bring a child with you. Why don't we team up? Let me introduce myself. My surname is Cheng and my name is Bao. Others call me Third Young Master Cheng. Have you heard of the Cheng family? The top 100 forces in Yuzhou." As soon as he said this, some people around looked over. It turned out to be the Cheng family, one of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou. Each of the top 100 forces in Yuzhou had at least one desolate hunter. The Cheng family of Yuzhou was ranked 84th among the forces in Yuzhou. It didn't seem to be ranked high, but Yuzhou was very big. Among them, there were more than 30,000 forces, big and small. Among so many forces, those who could be ranked in the top 100 definitely had real strength. When the people around knew that Cheng Bao was the 3rd young master of the Cheng family of Yuzhou, they all had a kind smile on their faces. "So it's 3rd young Master Cheng. Sorry for the disrespect. Hello, 3rd young Master Cheng. I visited the Cheng family of Yuzhou a month ago." "3rd young Master Cheng, you don't have to pay later. I'll pay for your ticket." Cheng Bao listened to the flattery around him and showed a satisfied expression. Then he looked at Emma. "The 4 people behind me are all level 5 desolate hunters. They can definitely keep you and your child safe. So I suggest that you form a team." Emma didn't even look at him and said coldly, "Not interested." Hearing this, 3rd young Master Cheng's face darkened. He didn't introduce himself just now and was rejected by this woman. He could only say that she didn't know his identity. Now that she knew his identity, she still dared to reject him. This made 3rd young Master Cheng feel that he had lost face in front of so many people. He snorted coldly, "Good, you have guts." But in his heart, he said, "When we reach the 2nd hunting ground, you will beg me." When the surrounding people saw that this woman actually rejected 3rd young Master Cheng, they all tried to flatter 3rd young Master Cheng. "It's not easy for you to take care of a child. Why don't you form a team with 3rd young Master Cheng? The strong people behind 3rd young Master Cheng can protect your son. You can also train without worry. Alas, why do you have to compete with yourself? Take a step back and you will have a better view." Emma continued to ignore these people. After queuing for more than 10 minutes, Emma and the others bought the tickets. They had signed a life and death contract. In the hunting ground, it was inevitable that there would be casualties. The life and death contract stated that the casualties in the hunting ground had nothing to do with the hunting ground. Then, they came to the teleportation hall and were teleported to the 2nd hunting ground. The 2nd hunting ground was called the Night Ghost Planet. The place where embark and the others were teleported to was a wasteland. In the sky, there was a pale white setting sun. Looking around, the ground was filled with rocks of various sizes. There was not even a single plant. Before coming to the hunting ground, these people had basically read about the strategy of the second hunting ground on the internet. They knew that this wasteland looked peaceful during the day, as if there was nothing there. But at night it was extremely dangerous. Therefore, they had to leave this place as soon as they were teleported here. The people who had just been teleported here activated their hover skates and left quickly. Embark and Emma were the only ones who didn't leave. They stayed where they were. When the beautiful girl who stood in front of Emma saw this, her eyes flashed with a hint of gloating. Then she left quickly. Third young Master Ching saw embark and Emma together. He finally understood why this woman ignored him just now. He opened his mouth slightly and was about to say something to embark. But a level 6 hunter beside him reminded him. Third young master, we are here to train this time. Master said not to cause any trouble. Seeing this, third young Master Cheng snorted coldly. They are lucky. Then he activated his hover skates and flew into the distance. Third young Master Cheng did not know that he had just walked around the gates of hell. Chapter 258. Third young Master Cheng did not know that he had just taken a trip around the gates of hell. The others had not gone far, so embark did not make a move. Otherwise, based on what third young Master Cheng had said just now, embark would have killed him long ago. Third young Master Cheng? Top 100 factions in Yuzhou? In front of embark, he was just an ant. After embark waited for those people to leave, he glanced at the white sun on the horizon. The white sun had already set on a mountain in the distance. On the other side, a pale green moon rose. This moon was bigger than the moons on Earth and the flaming beginning continent. It took up a third of the sky. The entire ground was dyed a pale green. When the white sun in the west finally set behind the mountain, on the ground in the distance, a rock the size of a human head suddenly rolled to the side. A shriveled hand was revealed. This hand was pale white and did not seem to have any flesh. It was just pale skin wrapped around bones. This hand clawed the ground and exerted force. The entire pale arm broke free from the ground. Then, a second arm broke free. Then the head and the entire body. This was a humanoid monster. The monster's skin was pale white. From the looks of it, he was just skin and bones. Through the skin, one could clearly see the ribs. Its head was so thin that it almost looked like a skeleton. Its eyeballs were completely white. The fingers on both hands were more than a foot long and looked extremely sharp. embark opened the blood dragon's eye and looked at this thing. Species, Night Ghost. Level 1 evolved. Ability, absorb energy. embark understood that the Night Ghost was a major feature of the second hunting ground. Among the few viruses in the second hunting ground, the most common one was the Night Ghost virus. Any human or animal infected with the Night Ghost virus would turn a ghastly white. That was why they were also called white ghosts. After being infected with the Night Ghost virus, these creatures would become extremely bloodthirsty. Moreover, when they bit uninfected creatures, they could absorb the energy of these creatures. Therefore, the Night Ghosts were very dangerous to the hunters. A level 1 Night Ghost was equivalent to a level 1 scavenger. This was exactly what embark needed right now. When the Night Ghost discovered embark, it immediately let out a roar. Its roar was very strange, like the sound of an old wooden door being turned. Jiggy. The next moment, it pounced straight at embark. Embark's figure leaped, using the dragon shadow step. He instantly leaped 10 kilometers high in the sky. Seeing this, Emma quickly extended a pair of blood-red wings from her back. Then, it flapped its wings and flew into the air with its son. She had seen how violent her master's physical strength was. If his son was still down there, he wouldn't have been able to withstand the aftershocks. The Night Ghost looked up and saw embark descending from the sky. The two rows of teeth were constantly colliding with each other, making a ga sound. Then, it also leaped straight towards embark, who was falling from the sky. However, it had only reached 50 meters. Emosher's fist had already landed on its head. Boom! The huge force smashed the night ghost to the ground. A huge pit with a diameter of 100 meters appeared on the ground. Emma, who was in the sky, saw this huge pit and was amazed. Her master didn't use any energy. Just his physical strength was enough to create such a huge pit in the ground. His strength was really terrifying. At this moment, she looked at the night ghost in the pit. It didn't look like a ghost at all. Its head had long exploded into a pile of mush. The energy in its body had long been depleted. Naturally, it couldn't be healed. One punch killed a level 1 night ghost. Even though Emma knew that her master was very strong, she didn't expect him to be this strong. Without using telekinesis or energy, he killed a level 1 night ghost with just physical strength. At the same time, a notification sounded in Emosher's mind. Frowny face killed 1 level 1 night ghost. Received 1 drop of Titan dragon blood. Then the second night ghost crawled out. Emosher killed it with another punch. Then the third, fourth, and fifth. More and more. At first, Emosher could deal with them alone. He killed one after another. But soon, more and more night ghosts crawled out. Emosher couldn't deal with them alone. Emma also started to make her move. Emma dealt with these level 1 evolved night ghosts with ease. However, she used her own energy and the telekinesis of a level 1 psychic to kill these night ghosts easily. But as time passed, there were more and more night ghosts here. 50, 100, 500. Thousands of night ghosts. They completely surrounded Emosher and Emma. This was why the guides on the internet said not to come to this hell wasteland at night. Generally, those who came here for experience were basically level 1 or level 2 hunters. They could deal with 1 or 2 night ghosts. If there were more than 10, they would die. Naturally, they didn't dare to stay in this hell wasteland for long. But Emosher was different. He used his dragon will to cover a radius of 50 meters. These night ghosts couldn't break through his dragon will barrier at all. He only let 10 night ghosts in each time. He killed them one by one with a punch. Gradually, he killed more and more night ghosts. 10, 50, 100, 500. When this 50-meter radius was filled with night ghosts' corpses and there was no place to stand, Emosher had already obtained more than 1,000 drops of blood. Emma, on the other hand, had only killed less than 100 night ghosts. Emosher swallowed these 1,000 drops of blood. He only felt the energy in his body surging. He could clearly feel that as long as he did it again, he would be able to improve again. They moved forward 500 meters. Emosher used his dragon will to throw all the night ghosts within a radius of 50 meters outside, clearing out an empty space. Once again, he formed a dragon will barrier to keep these night ghosts outside. He put in 11 at a time. He dealt with 10, Emma dealt with 1. Gradually, the eastern sky began to turn white. And Emosher had already killed more than 1,000 night ghosts again. He obtained more than 1,000 drops of Titan dragon blood. He swallowed these 1,000 drops of Titan dragon blood. The energy in his body skyrocketed again. He could clearly feel that he was only a hair's breadth away from leveling up. At most, he was 7 or 8 drops of Titan dragon blood away. At this time, because the sky was bright, some of the night ghosts around had already burrowed into the ground again. Some continued to try to pounce on Emosher and the others, wanting to eat Emosher and the others before the sun came out. Emosher's lips curled up. With a move of his dragon will, a gap opened in the dragon will barrier. Ga 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 ga. Another 10 night ghosts screamed and rushed in. Chapter 259. Emosher watched as the 10 night ghosts rushed in. His eyes shone brightly. He leaped up and rushed down. One punch. Boom! The head of one of the night ghosts exploded. Another punch. Boom! The head of the second night ghost also exploded. A moment later, only the last night ghost was left. Emosher leaped up. At a height of 10,000 meters, the sun in the east had already illuminated his cheeks. He jumped down. Boom! This punch landed heavily on the head of the last night ghost. The huge impact smashed the entire head of the night ghost into the ground. The shockwave sent the thousands of night ghost corpses flying high into the air. They fell like hailstones. Pa 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 pa. They fell to the ground. Another notification popped up in his mind. Frowny face killed one level 1 evolved night ghost. Obtained 1 drop of giant dragon blood. Emosure took out the 10 drops of giant dragon blood from the system space and swallowed them. It was also at this moment that the feeling of his body heating up appeared again. His skin quickly turned red. His eyes also turned fiery red. The temperature of his body was rising. Even Emma, who was beside him, could clearly feel the high temperature of Emosure's body. She looked at Emosure in surprise and asked, "Master, are you okay?" Emosure did not answer her. He just stood there motionless like a wooden sculpture. Seeing this, Emma quickly observed her surroundings carefully, to prevent other night ghosts from breaking in. Fortunately, although Emosure was leveling up, his dragon will did not relax. Those night ghosts could not break through Emosure's dragon will barrier at all. In addition, the sun had already risen, although the pale white sun did not seem to have any heat. But these night ghosts scattered in all directions and burrowed into the ground in fear. Some of the night ghosts who burrowed late immediately burst into flames when the sun shone on their bodies. They let out strange screams from their throats. Crunch, crunch, they burrowed into the ground. For a moment, the wasteland that was filled with night ghosts returned to silence in a very short period of time. Complete silence. Not even the slightest sound of wind could be heard. On the wasteland, only 2 huge circles with a radius of 50 meters were left. Corpses of the night ghosts were strewn all over the place. After death, night ghosts would not burn when exposed to sunlight. Finally, the fiery red color on Emosure's body slowly receded. He finally moved again. Emma heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, Emosure had been promoted to a level 3 hunter. Emosure, a level 3 hunter, could crush a hunter of the same level with his physical strength. Looking around, it was a boundless wilderness. Then, he looked at the 2,000 night ghosts' corpses in the 2 giant circles. Emosure was secretly delighted. At this rate, he would only need to stay here for another week at most to raise his strength by another level. It seemed like it was the right decision to come to the second hunting ground. Emma's son opened his mouth repeatedly. Although she had followed Emma and seen many monsters and massacres, she was not afraid of these night ghosts. But she was just an ordinary person now. She had not slept the whole night and was very sleepy. Emma took out some dry food for her son to eat. Emosure took out the dragon's cave. The dragon's cave quickly expanded. After the 3 of them entered the dragon's cave, it disappeared in the air as if it had never existed. At the same time, some of the other hunters who came in with Emosure were injured, and some were even on the verge of death. Although they had escaped the wasteland, night ghosts were everywhere on planet Night Ghosts. Although there were not as many night ghosts in other places, there were still quite a few. When these people were training, they would often encounter 3 to 5, dozens, or even hundreds of night ghosts. Many of them had gone through a night of fighting and killed a few night ghosts. When the night ghosts burrowed into the ground at dawn, they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. The beautiful girl who was jealous of Emma's appearance also had a few wounds on her body after a night of fighting. Her hair was messy, and one of her sleeves was torn off, revealing her fair arm. She looked very haggard. Fortunately, she had brought some medicine. After taking it, the virus was expelled from her body. Otherwise, it would not be long before she became a night ghost. Among these people, the most comfortable was third young Master Cheng. Although he'd encountered quite a few night ghosts, he'd brought 4 powerful followers with him. When he encountered danger that he could not avoid, the 4 followers would help him deal with it. But even so, he had been running for his life the whole night. After all, the 4 followers would only help when he could not avoid danger. At this moment, he was sitting on a rock by the river, panting. Even though he was a level 1 hunter, after a night of fighting and running, he was almost exhausted. A follower next to him handed him a water bag. He gulped down a few mouthfuls. He said, "Can we go back now?" A follower shook his head. "Third young master, the master said that we have to train for at least a month before we can go back." Third young Master Cheng spat out the water in his mouth. What? A month? You might as well kill me. So I'm not your biological son at all? The four followers did not dare to answer. Third young Master Cheng saw that the four of them were determined to make him stay here for a month. He knew that it was useless to protest. He could only shake his head. Forget it. A month it is. Anyway, with you guys here, I won't die. It's just that I can't touch women for a month. It's too much. Speaking of this, he thought of the woman from yesterday, who had exuded a fatal temptation with every move she made. That woman was really TSK. But when he thought of that woman following that pretty boy, he could not help but get angry. That pretty boy was so stupid to stay in the hell wasteland with that woman. One had to know that even his four followers would have no chance of survival in the hell wasteland. If they stayed there, they would definitely die. If that pretty boy died, then so be it. If that stupid child died, then so be it. It was just a pity for that woman. At the same time, at the coordinates of the hell wasteland, more than 100 blue and white light balls slowly condensed into human figures. This was the first batch of trainees of the day. After they appeared, someone looked at the wasteland full of big and small stones and shouted with a sense of novelty. Wow, is this the hell wasteland? It's really the same as what the guide said. An 18-year-old girl said, the hell wasteland is peaceful during the day, but ghosts roam at night. Even level 6 and level 7 hunters don't dare to spend the night here. So everyone better leave before the sun sets. Everyone nodded. But at this time, someone suddenly said, "What's that?" Chapter 260. In broad daylight on the wasteland of hell. Rocks of all sizes stretched as far as the eye could see. At the teleportation coordinates, more than 100 cultivators had just teleported over. Someone suddenly pointed into the distance and exclaimed, "What's that?" Everyone looked in the direction of his finger. There were two piles of things there. Upon closer inspection, they found that they were actually two piles of night ghost corpses. Everyone came to the two piles of corpses in surprise. They saw that each pile of corpses was a perfect circle. It was 100 meters in diameter. Thousands of night specter corpses were scattered all over the place within this 100-meter circle. Apart from a small number of corpses that were killed by sharp claws and energy, most of the corpses had their heads blown off. Everyone was astonished. There are so many night ghost corpses. Did someone kill them here last night? A blonde blurted out subconsciously, "What a joke. Staying here at night is simply courting death. Maybe someone killed them somewhere else and moved these corpses here." Another person asked, "What's the purpose?" "Who knows? Maybe it's just a prank." The blonde shrugged and said nonchalantly. However, a refined young man analyzed with a solemn expression. "My father has been a private investigator for many years. I've learned a lot from him. Judging from the blood on the ground, this is the first scene." The blonde curled his lips. "TSK. How do you prove it?" The refined young man pushed up his glasses and said, "Listen to me. I'll prove it to you." He looked at the multifunction watch on his wrist. It's 7:05. It's only been 13 minutes since sunrise. If they were moved here from somewhere else, who could move more than 2,000 corpses here in 13 minutes? So I'm sure that this is the first scene. When the yellow-haired man heard this, he felt a little embarrassed and argued forcefully. Maybe they moved here all day yesterday. The refined young man smiled and shook his head. That's even more impossible. Judging from the blood on these night ghosts, they must have died not long ago. It can't be yesterday. The blonde youth braced himself and said, "This is all your imagination, fabricating something out of thin air, creating something out of nothing. According to you, an expert stayed here for a night and killed more than 2,000 night ghosts?" The refined young man nodded. "That's right." With that, he flipped one of the night ghosts over and carefully examined the wound. This wound is definitely not caused by a sharp weapon or energy. It's a blunt weapon, and it's very likely a fist. Then he checked another corpse. Slightly surprised, he said, "One punch to the head." He flipped over another corpse and said, "One punch to the head." He continued to flip through the pages. One punch to the head. One punch to the head. It's still a headshot. Then, he looked at the huge pits around him, and his voice was filled with surprise. There were two of them. One of them had sharp claws as his weapon, while the other had fists. Most of the night ghosts were killed by the man with his fists. When the yellow-haired man heard this, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. It was as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. You're saying that there are people who don't use energy or weapons? He killed over 1,000 level 1 evolved night ghosts with just his fists? The refined young man pushed up his glasses and nodded solemnly. When everyone heard this, they were all shocked. That's impossible. To be able to do this, I'm afraid his strength has already reached level 7 or level 8. Someone immediately retorted, level 7 or level 8 hunters should go to the 7th and 8th hunting grounds. Why would they waste their precious time in the first hunting ground? For example, if you're a level 2 hunter now, would you waste your time in the first hunting ground? There's not even a level 1 wild beast there. This person's words attracted the agreement of many others. For a hunter, time was very precious. Other than the daily training, they would go to various places to adventure and gain experience. High-level hunters would not go to low-level hunting grounds at all, because there was no benefit to them at all, and it would waste a lot of time. Someone said, that means that this hunter is very likely a hunter who specializes in strengthening his body. The refined young man nodded. The yellow-haired man chuckled and said, even if it's a hunter who specializes in strengthening his body, it's impossible for him to spend the night in the Hell Wasteland. After all, even a level 5 or level 6 hunter wouldn't dare to spend the night here. So what you said is bullshit. The refined young man smiled and said, after following my father as a detective for so many years, the only feeling I have is that the world is big and there are all kinds of strange things. Anything illogical can happen. If you want to prove that I'm lying, you can stay here with me tonight. I reckon that the hunter will come here again tonight. The yellow-haired man scolded, you're crazy. Then he stepped on his hover boots and flew away. Who would dare to spend the night here? Even if there were more than 100 of them, they wouldn't dare to stay here for a night. Let alone a night, they wouldn't even dare to stay for a minute. The rest of the people were all looking forward to meeting that mysterious expert. If there's really such a person, I'd like to meet him. Yeah, he could kill a level 1 evolved night ghost with just his fists. Such a person is worth befriending. It's a pity that none of us dare to stay here for the night. As they spoke, they activated their hover boots one after another. In groups of 3 to 5, they flew into the distance. That night, not long after the sun set, a pale green moon had already risen in the east. It was like a green monster that wanted to devour the earth. It made people feel nervous just by looking at it. The night ghosts crawled out of the ground one after another. 10,000 ghosts roamed at night, wailing and howling like ghosts. It was like hell. At this moment, the space somewhere suddenly distorted. A 100-meter-tall mountain appeared out of thin air. There was a cave at the top of the mountain. 3 people jumped out of the cave. It was Emosher and the other 2. When they jumped out, the mountain shrunk to the size of a walnut and returned to Emosher's palm. With a thought, Emosher put it back into his backpack. When the tens of thousands of night ghosts saw Emosher and the others appear, they all screamed. They were like a group of monkeys that had rushed into a peach garden. He was so excited that his eyes were shining. Their 2 rows of teeth kept colliding, making a strange sound. Jiggy, jiggy. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws and pounced at Emosher and the others. Just like last night, Emosher threw the extra night ghosts out with Dragon Will. Only 10 night ghosts were left. These 10 night ghosts were not only not afraid when they saw the other night ghosts being thrown out, but were also very excited. After all, there were too many ghosts and too little meat. There wasn't enough to go around. Now that there were only 10 night ghosts left, each of them could eat their fill. Chapter 261. He watched as the 10 night ghosts pounced over. Emosher no longer needed to jump into the air. After advancing to level 3, his strength had increased by dozens of times. He stomped on the ground with his right foot, and his body shot out like an arrow. He jumped more than 20 meters in an instant. He was so fast that it completely exceeded the night ghost's reaction speed. By the time the night ghosts reacted, emosher's fist had already smashed into their heads. Bang! The night ghost's head exploded. Then, emosher dodged the attacks of 2 night ghosts. His upper body spun half a circle. Using the force of the rotation, he exerted force with his right elbow. He hit a night ghost's head. Crack! Under emosher's immense strength, the night ghost was sent flying 100 meters away. Its head didn't cave in, but exploded. The third night ghost was about to bite him. Emosher retreated 1,000 meters with the Dragon Shadow Step. Then he used the Dragon Shadow Step again and leaped toward the night ghost. When he arrived in front of the night ghost, he raised his right knee and hit the night ghost's head. Behind the night ghost, another night ghost pounced over. Crack crack. 2 sounds in a row. This attack had insta-killed 2 night ghosts. Then he punched and kicked and quickly finished off the remaining night ghosts. It only took 30 seconds to kill 10 night ghosts. Compared to last night, this efficiency was greatly increased. This was the increase in emosher's strength after advancing. Emma, who was beside him, was secretly surprised when she saw this. Although her master was very good at dealing with the night ghosts last night, it was far from being as efficient as now. Could it be that her master's strength had increased again in just one day? This speed of improvement was too terrifying. Emosher killed 10 night ghosts. Looking at his fist, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Awesome!" The feeling of being filled with power made him exclaim. This time, he directly put in 20 night ghosts. Just like before, he dealt with the 20 night ghosts in just a few moves. Then he put in 30 night ghosts at once. An hour later, he could already deal with 50 night ghosts at the same time. This way, his speed of killing night ghosts greatly increased. In one night, they had killed more than 13,000 night ghosts. As a result, he obtained more than 13,000 drops of dragon blood. Looking at his backpack full of WRM blood, Emosher was pleasantly surprised. This was similar to the feeling of farming monsters at the spawn point when he was playing private server games. There was only one word to describe it: awesome. Seeing that the sun had risen, all the night ghosts that were still alive began to return to the surface. Emosher and Emma also returned to the dragon's denver. After consuming more than 10,000 drops of Titan dragon blood, the energy in Emosher's body had increased significantly. Now, the energy in his body was at least 100 times stronger than that of a hunter at the same level. Even if he didn't use the dragon will, he could easily kill opponents of the same level with just his energy and physical strength. At the same time, at the coordinates outside, today's first batch of trainees had arrived. When they arrived at this hellish wasteland, everyone was stunned for a few seconds. Corpses of night ghosts littered the ground around the coordinates. Preliminary estimates showed that there were about 15,000 of them. Damn, what's going on? My dad told me that the night ghosts in the hellish wasteland are all very terrifying. But it doesn't look like it. Could it be that a powerful senior has come here? Your senior is willing to come to the second hunting ground to waste his time? Just as they were exclaiming in amazement, 5 people also flew over from afar. They were the first batch of trainees who had arrived yesterday. One of them was the bespectacled private detective. They were all shocked when they saw the corpses of night ghosts piled up all over the ground. He was here again last night. He killed more than 10,000 of them in one night, and he killed them with his physical strength. Isn't this 2F** King exaggerated? Someone hurriedly said, "Watch your words. Be careful not to let that mysterious expert overhear you." The man quickly stuck out his tongue, looked around, and said, "Mysterious expert, I'm sorry. Mysterious expert, I'm sorry. I'm just expressing my feelings. I don't mean any disrespect to you." Hearing their conversation, the trainees who had arrived today couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Do you know who this expert is?" The bespectacled private detective shook his head. "We don't know. We just saw more than 2,000 night ghosts yesterday and guessed that there was an expert. But we didn't expect him to kill more than 10,000 night ghosts in one night, and all of them were killed with his physical strength. When the crowd heard this, they all revealed looks of admiration. Even the elders in their families who had reached levels 10 would not be able to kill so many level 1 evolved night ghosts in one night with their physical strength alone. After all, one's strength would run out eventually, and the night ghosts here were almost endless. Even a level 10 expert would die of exhaustion if he didn't use his energy. They didn't know that Emosure had recovery potions. If he ran out of strength, he could use dozens of recovery potions to recover his strength in minutes. Why don't we come over tonight and see who this expert is? A young man suggested. Everyone's gazes immediately turned to look at him. Children shouldn't talk nonsense. This is the hellish wasteland. Ghosts roam at night. Even if we come together, we can only last a few minutes. You think you're that mysterious expert? The young man also realized that he had said something wrong. He shook his head and smiled. No. How can I compare to the mysterious expert? At the same time, 300 kilometers away, in a cave on a mountain, third young Master Cheng's hair was disheveled, and his clothes were almost tattered. He lay on the ground in the cave, not even bothering to take the water that a follower offered him. He was gasping for air. He cursed his father in his heart. Why did he send him to such a lousy place? Experience? Experience your sister. If he continued training like this, he would die in a few days. He was unlucky last night. The 3 waves of night ghosts he encountered were all level 2 night ghosts. The 4 dead people next to him, other than helping him when he was in absolute danger, were just watching from the side. He watched helplessly as a group of night ghosts chased him all over the mountains and plains. Fortunately, he had brought a few life-saving items with him before he left. Otherwise, even if he wasn't killed by the night ghosts, he would be exhausted from running for his life. As for killing the night ghosts, damn, they were all level 2 night ghosts. How could he, a level 1 hunter, kill them? What? You said you were fighting above your level. Only perverts would do such a thing. How could a normal person like him do such a thing? Chapter 262. For the next 3 days, Emosure killed the night ghosts in the Hell Wasteland almost every night. Every morning, there would be 10 to 20,000 night ghosts' corpses left on the wasteland. Every day, those who entered the second hunting ground would see the ground covered with night ghosts' corpses. They were all very curious. Who did this? But no one dared to stay and find out at night. But everyone knew that a mysterious expert had appeared in the second hunting ground. Emosure thought that this situation would continue and that he would reach level 3 in a few days. But on this night, Emosure found that the number of night ghosts in the Hell Wasteland had decreased sharply compared to before. At most, there were only 3,000 of them. After Emosure killed all the night ghosts, no more night ghosts crawled out. For the rest of the night, there was not even a single night ghost. Emosure was puzzled. Logically speaking, there should be an endless number of night ghosts under the wasteland. Why didn't they come out? Was it because they were scared of him? In fact, Emosure's guess was right. Although these night ghosts had limited intelligence, they were not brainless. In the first few days, they thought that no matter how strong these humans were, they could eat them with their advantage in numbers. But as time passed, they were horrified to find that this human was a complete monster. Even if there were 10 or 100 times more of them, they would not be able to eat them. Not only could they not eat them, but if they went in groups, they would just be delivering themselves to the night ghosts. So, these night ghosts stopped appearing. Emosure saw that there were no more night ghosts. He could only shrug helplessly. He said to Emma, "Let's go check out other places." According to the previous guide, Emosure knew that there was another place on planet Night Ghost that had countless night ghosts. That was the Death Swamp. Emosure turned on his multifunction watch and opened the navigation function. The little monk had already saved the map of planet Night Ghost into his multifunction watch. Emosure said, "Go to the Death Swamp." The multifunction watch activated the scanning function and scanned the surrounding terrain, quickly matching it to the map. Then, the mechanical female voice sounded, You are 53,323 kilometers away from the Death Swamp. Please choose a mode of travel: walk, fly, or take a vehicle. Fly, Emosher said. Soon, an almost straight route appeared on the virtual screen of the map. Emosher and Emma flew in the direction of the Death Swamp under the illumination of the pale green moon that took up a third of the sky. Along the way, Emosher saw groups of night ghosts appearing on the ground and landing from time to time. Kill these night ghosts. After flying for about 10 minutes, 3 night ghosts appeared beside a lake below. Emosher's blood dragon's eye swept across. Species: Night Ghost. Level 2 evolution. The 3 night ghosts were all level 2 evolved night ghosts. Emosher retracted his blood dragon wings and plummeted from the sky. Taking advantage of the falling momentum, he threw a punch at one of the night ghosts. The night ghosts reacted quickly as well. Hearing the sound of air being torn apart, Zhang Xian hurriedly raised his head. He saw a black shadow crashing down towards him. He hurriedly turned to the side. However, it was still a little too late. Although the punch was a little off target, it still hit its head. Bang! Its head instantly caved in. At the same time, Emosher's punch also used the inner strength of the ancient fist technique on Earth. The inner strength passed through the night ghost's body and directly shattered the energy bubble that stored energy in its body. As a result, the night ghost's body completely lost its self-healing ability. It collapsed to the ground. When the other 2 night ghosts saw this, their upper and lower rows of teeth kept clattering, making a strange sound. Ga 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 ga. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws and pounced at Emosher. And on the tips of their claws, there was a flash of energy. One of the night ghosts slashed at Emosher with its claws. Emosher dodged to the side. Whoosh! That claw actually released a sharp energy. On the ground behind Emosher, there was a claw mark that was more than 20 meters long and 3 meters wide. This was the difference between a level 2 evolved night ghost and a level 1 evolved night ghost. A level 2 evolved night ghost could release such an energy attack twice. Therefore, a level 2 evolved night ghost was much stronger than a level 1 evolved night ghost. However, in front of Emosher's agility, it was impossible for such an attack to hurt him. He had already used the Dragon Shadow Step to jump 10,000 meters. Then he smashed towards the ground. Another punch was thrown at the night ghost's head. The night ghost crossed its arms and wanted to block. Crack, crack, 2 sounds in a row. The first was the sound of the night ghost's arms being broken. The second sound was the sound of the top of its head being smashed inwards. The second night ghost also went limp. When Emosher killed a level 2 evolved night ghost, although it was not as easy as killing a level 1 evolved night ghost, he could still kill it with 1 punch by using the height. Then, the third night ghost's head was also dented. He was about to leave. But at this moment, he realized that the night ghost's body was rapidly recovering. Emosher was a little surprised. He had clearly used his inner strength to shatter the energy bubble in the night ghost's abdomen. Logically speaking, it should have lost its self-healing ability. How could it still heal itself? In his surprise, he saw that the night ghost's body was rapidly changing. On its back, spikes that were more than a foot long began to grow. 2 thick horns grew out of its forehead. When Emosher saw this, he was immediately delighted. This night ghost had the night ghost's spirit in its body. Legend had it that there was a 1 in a billion chance that the night ghost's spirit would appear in a night ghost's body. The night ghost's spirit was very useful. It was said that after consuming it, it could heal injuries. As long as one was not killed on the spot, the night ghost's spirit could save them. It could also cure all kinds of terminal diseases. It could also extend a person's life to 500 years. Moreover, after consuming it, one could directly advance to a desolate hunter. Of course, there was a price to pay for using it to advance to a desolate hunter. That was, from then on, the realm was equivalent to being locked. They could no longer advance even by 1 level. But even so, it still made people scramble for it. After all, on the mainland, most people would never be able to become a desolate hunter in their lifetime. But now, after consuming the night ghost spirit, not only could one directly advance to a desolate hunter, It could also extend one's life to 500 years. How could this not make people go crazy? However, the probability of the night ghost spirit appearing was extremely low. It had appeared once more than 70 years ago, and since then, it had not appeared again. Who would have thought that Emosher would encounter it today? What a fortune! Emosher asked in his mind. System, if I consume the night ghost spirit, will my realm be limited? Chapter 263. Under the pale green moonlight, the night ghost was transforming. More than 10 meters away, Emosher asked in his mind, System, if I consume the night ghost spirit, will my realm be limited? The system's voice sounded frowny-faced. The host's body has been transformed by dragon blood. How can a mere night ghost spirit limit it? Emosher was overjoyed when he heard this. However, the system poured a bucket of cold water on Emosher. However, after consuming the night ghost spirit, the host's bloodline will no longer be pure. Even if you evolve into a titan dragon in the future, the upper limit will be extremely low. There will be no possibility of further evolution. Emosher smiled bitterly when he heard this. If that was the case, forget it. He had the system, and it was only a matter of time before he became a desolate hunter. If he sought temporary success now and limited his future development, he would be too short-sighted. However, the system's words gave Emosher another piece of information. Are you saying that there's an even stronger existence above the Titan Dragon? The system's voice sounded frowny-faced. The Titan Dragon is only the lowest level of existence among the flying dragons. There are stronger dragons above it. Follow the steps set by the system and walk step by step. You will eventually become the most powerful dragon. Emosher was an adult and naturally had his own judgment. Hearing the system's words, he was overwhelmed with emotions and made his choice. The night ghost was now 3 meters tall. And it was still growing. According to legend, after this guy's potential was stimulated, it could grow to 100 meters tall. At that time, whether it was speed, strength, explosive power, or energy, it would be at its peak. Therefore, taking advantage of the time when it was transforming, Emosher leaped. He reached a height of 10,000 meters in an instant. His body flipped and smashed into the ground like a meteor. Boom! This punch landed heavily on the big guy's head. A shockwave spread out for 100 meters. The top of the night ghost's head caved in. At the same time, the energy bubble in its abdomen burst again. But this was not the end. Emosher swung his sharp claws. Swish, 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 swish. A few consecutive claw strikes. The night ghost was cut into several pieces. At the same time, a walnut-sized crystal fell out of the night ghost's body. Above the crystal, energy swirls like white smoke. The energy was still trying to gather the night ghost's flesh and blood to revive it. However, Emosher used his draconic will to suppress the energy within the crystal. The flesh and blood of the night ghosts could no longer gather. Emosher reached out and picked up the crystal. The night ghost spirit was like a hungry wolf that had discovered a flock of sheep. The energy within it kept drilling into Emosher's body. A moment later, it actually tore apart Emosher's left hand and embedded itself into his left hand. Emosher did not feel the slightest bit of pain. At this moment, Emosher's left hand was actually emitting a faint white light. According to what Emosher knew from the memories of others, the night ghost spirit had to be nourished with flesh and blood. Without flesh and blood, it would turn into ashes in just a few minutes. Therefore, once it encountered flesh and blood, it would drill into it. At this moment, if it was not consumed, it would emit a faint white light. Others would know at a glance that it was the night ghost spirit. This was really a hot potato. However, Emosher did not care. With his strength and the sea dragon doppelganger, which had now reached the level of a level 3 strong wild beast, there was no creature on this planet that could be his opponent. Just as he put away the night ghost spirit and was about to leave, not far away, a lazy voice suddenly sounded. "Kid, hand over the night ghost spirit." Along with the voice, 5 people slowly walked out of the darkness. Under the pale green moonlight, one could see that these 5 people were about 40 years old. They were all level 2 hunters. They were only level 2 hunters in their 40s. Although their talent was not too bad, they could only reach level 5 hunters at most in this lifetime. Emosher was not surprised to see these 5 people appear. Before the battle just now, he had already scanned the surroundings with his draconic will. He knew that there were 5 people hiding in the darkness. However, at that time, he had glanced at the strength of these 5 people and ignored them. At this moment, these 5 people were looking at the faint white light on Emosher's left hand with greed in their eyes. The 5 of them had clearly seen this kid pick up a crystal that was emitting a white light. They also guessed that the white crystal was very likely the night ghost spirit. According to previous information, the energy in the body of a person who had just obtained the night ghost spirit would be limited by the night ghost spirit. In battle, they could not use their abilities at all. Therefore, they appeared when Emosher had just obtained the night ghost spirit. Kid, you just got the night ghost spirit, so you can't use your energy. Hand over the night ghost spirit and I can consider leaving your corpse intact. One of them said. Another's eyes were also shining as he said, we also saw that your physical strength is very strong. But do you think you can defeat us with just your physical strength? The third person laughed and said, don't worry, we have always been the most law-abiding. We can gang up on you, but we won't fight alone. The fourth person also laughed. His gaze was fixed on Emma, and he had a perverted smile on his face. I don't have as many thoughts as you guys. Earning big money, night ghost spirit, and being a desolate hunter. I know that I am unlucky and have no fate with these. Therefore, my thoughts are very realistic. I want to take this girl, The fifth person was slightly older. He only said 2 words. Do it. As soon as he finished speaking, the 5 of them condensed their genetic weapons at the same time. Their genetic weapons glowed with a fiery red light. Kid, prepare to die. The 5 of them said in unison. Emosher leaped lightly and instantly flashed a kilometer away. The next moment, like a slingshot, he bounced back. At the same time, he kicked with his left and hit the face of the person in front. Bang! That person's head immediately exploded. The other 4 people were shocked. This kid's physical strength was actually so terrifying. Use your strength. The leader of the desolate hunters hurriedly shouted. However, as soon as his voice fell, Emosher's figure instantly turned around. A whip kick had already landed on that person's face. Bang! That person's head did not explode. Instead, he was sent flying far away. He flew more than 300 meters away. When the remaining 3 people saw this, their expressions changed drastically. They hurriedly turned around and fled. They originally thought that no matter how strong this kid's physical strength was, he would not be able to win against their genetic weapons. In the end, their genetic weapons were not of any use. This kid's speed was too fast and his strength was too strong. They did not even have the chance to use their genetic weapons to attack. Therefore, if they did not flee now, would they just stand there and wait for death? Chapter 264. Emosher killed 2 of them. The remaining 3 immediately regretted it. Although the night ghost spirit was precious, it wasn't worth it compared to their lives. If they lost their lives, what was the use of the night ghost spirit? However, if they wanted to escape at this moment, it was simply a pipe dream. Emosher used Dragon Shadow Step and caught up with them easily. He took care of the 3 of them with 1 punch each. 1 against 5. Without any energy enhancement, he killed the 5 of them in an instant. Although the 5 of them were 1 level lower than Emosher, this was enough to shock him. A system notification popped up in his mind. Frowny Face killed 5 level 2 hunters. Received 10 drops of Titan Dragon Blood. Emosher consumed the 10 drops of Titan Dragon Blood. Then he took out a black gauntlet from his backpack and put it on his left hand. On the continent, metal gauntlets, leggings, wrist guards, and so on were very common. Wearing them on his body wouldn't arouse suspicion. The metal gauntlet blocked the light emitted from his left hand. With Emosher's strength, he wasn't afraid of anyone stealing it. But that would still be troublesome. So it was better to cover it. At the same time, Emosher said in his mind, System, sign in for a special event. Killing a night ghost with the night ghost spirit should be considered a special event. The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, killed 1 night ghost with the night ghost spirit. Sign in reward, summon night ghosts, 10 night ghost spirit seeds. Emosure carefully looked at the 2 rewards. Summon night ghosts. Summon night ghosts within a radius of 100 kilometers and make them listen to orders. Night ghost spirit seed, plant in a night ghost's body. After 1 year, it will mature and obtain the night ghost spirit. Emosure understood the role of these 2 rewards and couldn't help but reveal a smile on his face. With these 2 skills, as long as he brought some night ghosts back with him when he left, then he would plant the night ghost spirit seeds in their bodies. After a year, he would be able to create 10 hunters in the base. Thinking of this, Emosure directly used the summon night ghost skill. Soon, 10 night ghosts rushed to Emosure's side. Emosure took out the 10 night ghost spirit seeds from his backpack. These night ghost spirit seeds were only the size of sesame seeds and did not glow at all. You look like the seed of an ordinary plant. Emosure ordered the night ghosts, cut open your abdomens. Like obedient students, the night ghosts stretched out their sharp claws and cut open their abdomens. Emosure stuffed the 10 night ghost spirit seeds into the bodies of the night ghosts. Then he threw these night ghosts into his personal reservoir. He also told the sea dragon clone not to eat them. Emma, who was watching from the side, was so shocked that she felt numb. Why were these night ghosts so obedient to their master? However, when he thought of all the unimaginable things that had happened to Emosure, any one of them would be shocking enough if it happened to any one of them. But now, they were all focused on Master. It could be said that Master was synonymous with miracles. He was the aggregate of impossible events. So, any strange things that happened to him were normal. Thinking about it this way, Emma felt relieved. Then, Emosure took Emma and continued flying forward. After flying for another half an hour, Emosure saw that a mountain below was brightly lit. It turned out that this was a city of natives. There were also humans on the Night Ghost's planet, and there were more than 7 billion of them on Earth. Emosure probed with his dragon consciousness and found that people were holding a bonfire party next to a pool in the city. The fragrant barbecue and all kinds of fruits made Emosure drool. On Hunting Island 1, because they were new to the place, the resources were limited. So, it had been a long time since they had barbecue and other delicacies. Now that he suddenly saw this, Emosure was really hungry. They had been fighting for several nights. It was time to relax. Thinking of this, Emosure and Emma landed outside the city. It was impossible to land directly in the city. The humans here also had anti-air firepower. With Emosure's physical strength, he was not afraid of such firepower at all. But it was too troublesome. Emma folded her wings and the 3 of them walked toward the city gate. 2 night ghosts caught up with them, but Emosure easily killed them. Soon, they arrived at the city gate. The soldiers guarding the city were surprised to see Emosure and the other 2. These 3 humans were loitering outside the city in the middle of the night. Did they have a death wish? Of course, the soldiers guarding the city had seen outsiders before. Those outsiders generally possessed extremely powerful strength. They were the only ones who could linger outside at night. However, those people were very domineering. Usually, they would not go through the city gate when they came to the base. They would come directly from the sky. These 3 people were obviously not outsiders. Thinking of this, a soldier said loudly, "We can let you in, but you have to be tested for the virus." Emosure nodded. Then, under the heavy protection of the soldiers, Emosure and the other 2 were let in. They passed by a house inside the city wall. After a few scans, Emosure and the others' bodies did not show any abnormalities. Only then did they let them in. Emosure was worried that the night ghost spirit in his hand would be detected by the scan. That would be troublesome. In the end, it was not. Then, the leading soldier led them to the residence in the city. This was a place specially arranged to take in refugees. Emosure said that he was hungry and wanted to eat something first. The soldier said, "All the canteens in the refugee shelter have food before midnight." Emosher shook his head. I smell the aroma of barbecued meat. Is there a bonfire party here? The soldier frowned slightly. You almost died outside. Now that you have a bite to eat, you should be thanking the heavens and earth. You still want to ask? However, when he turned around to look at Emosher and the other two, he saw Emma and her son, who seemed to have no intelligence at all. He could not help but feel pity in his heart. In the end, he nodded. Okay, I'll take you to the bonfire party. But go back to your residence after eating. Don't cause any trouble or you'll implicate me, understand? Emosher smiled and nodded. Don't worry, I just want a bite of barbecued meat. More than 10 minutes later, Emosher and the others arrived at the bonfire party. There were more than 300 people at the scene. The meat of more than 20 animals was being roasted on the rack. On the iron plate next to it, there was a large piece of barbecued meat. Although they did not know what kind of meat it was, since these natives could eat it, Emosher and the others could also eat it. Emosher did not stand on ceremony. He walked over, picked up a plate, and started eating. Chapter 265. Emosher grabbed a roasted leg and started to chew it with big bites. He didn't know what animal this meat was, but it was really fragrant. Ever since Emosher decided to go to the Flaming Origin continent, he had been using all his sign-in opportunities on the bloodline modification liquid and dragon blood. Therefore, it had been nearly half a year since he had eaten real roasted meat. Now that he was eating this fragrant roasted meat again, he felt that it was more fragrant than ever before. It was a pity that there was no beer. At this point, Emma had already taken a jar of wine and handed it to Emosher. Emosher looked at Emma in surprise. Emma also smiled at him. This Emma was getting better and better at reading his mind. Could it be that she had evolved from the worm in his stomach? With this thought, Emosher immediately had an image in his mind. How a roundworm wriggled in his body. Then it slowly evolved and finally became this sexy and seductive Emma. Sigh, it's a little disgusting. Emosher suddenly felt that the roasted meat in his mouth didn't seem to be very fragrant. If Emma knew that in her master's imagination, she had become a roundworm wriggling in his stomach, who knew how she would feel? Of course, this was only a strange thought in Emosher's mind. When he shook his head and shook these strange thoughts out of his mind, he felt very comfortable. After all, with a beauty beside him handing him wine, any man would feel very comfortable. The men around them saw how sexy Emma was, and a few of them were bold enough to come over and strike up a conversation. But when they saw Emma take the initiative to give Emosher wine, they all gave up on this idea. In their opinion, this was a family of three. Emma took care of Emosher, then turned to take care of her son. Her son didn't seem to be very intelligent in other aspects. But when it came to eating, he seemed to be very talented. He seemed to be able to eat better than anyone else. So much so that now her 11-year-old son's weight had already reached more than 90 kilograms. He was almost the same as Emma. The people in this city had their own way of dealing with the night ghosts. The night ghosts were most afraid of light and didn't dare to come out during the day. At night, the entire city was lit up. Therefore, the night ghosts did not dare to attack the city at night. For the people in the city, the biggest natural enemy was actually those who called themselves scavenger hunters. The strongest among the locals was only a level 10 great hunter. Any one of these hunters could easily crush a level 10 great hunter. However, the people from other planets usually came to the city to rest during the day. At night, they would go out to hunt the night ghosts. Therefore, the natives were the most relaxed at night. Gradually, it was around 10 o'clock at night. Emosher was enjoying his meal. As for Emma, she did not eat. To the vampires, human food wasn't very tasty. Especially cooked food. However, at this moment, in the sky, several blue and white rays of light suddenly flew over from the distant horizon. The city guards immediately sounded the alarm. Outsider, outsider, outsider. Important things had to be said thrice. Every time an outsider appeared, it was basically a disaster for the city. Think about it. If a hunter broke into the nest of his prey, what good things could happen? Seeing this, the natives' eyes were filled with deep fear. They hurriedly got up and scattered in all directions. To them, these outsiders were demons. Only Emosher was still sitting there, holding the leg of an unknown animal and gnawing on it with relish. At this moment, one of the fastest natives suddenly fell to the ground and stopped moving. Then, bang, 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 more than 10 of the fastest running aborigines fell to the ground one after another, not making a sound. In the sky, the blue and white rays of light gradually approached. A dignified voice ordered, "Whoever dares to escape will die." The rest of the aborigines were all scared out of their wits. Psychokinesis didn't exist on the night ghost planet. Therefore, the scene just now was incomprehensible to them. It could only be explained by ghosts. At this moment, the balls of light were even closer. Only then did everyone see that they were 5 outsiders. 4 men and 1 woman. The leader of the group was a handsome young man with a harmless smile on his face. He said to the natives, "We've been killing ourselves outside. We're just tired from killing monsters outside, so we're here to rest tonight. If you serve us well, we'll kill fewer people. Otherwise, we'll slaughter your city." He still had that harmless smile on his face. His tone was as relaxed and normal as if he was chatting about daily life. However, to the natives, it sounded like the voice of a demon. At this moment, rip, an invisible force tore off one of the natives' arms. Blood splattered everywhere. The native screamed in pain. The natives didn't even have time to react. Rip, another native's leg was torn off. The native's face was also pale. His face was contorted as he screamed in pain. The rest of the natives were all scared out of their wits. In the sky, the eyes of the other 4 people were focused on a young man in his 20s. The young man's face was fair and clean, and his clothes were neat and tidy. He looked like a refined scholar from ancient times. However, he was the one who tore off the arms and legs of the 2 natives with his telekinesis. The fair-skinned young man smiled when he saw the other 4 looking at him. "Sorry, I couldn't help it." The other 4 people were speechless. The leader said, "If we want to kill them, we'll kill them when we leave tomorrow. If we kill them all now, who will serve us?" The fair-skinned young man nodded. "Yes, you're right. It's just that I haven't killed anyone in a long time. My hands are itching." Before he finished speaking, his telekinesis spread out again. Rip, another dozen or so people's arms and legs were torn apart and thrown far away. The scene was suddenly filled with wails and howls. This made the others shake their heads. However, that was all. Everyone had a dark side in their hearts. When they came to the hunting ground, the dark side in their hearts was infinitely magnified. After all, in their eyes, these natives were just prey that they could kill whenever they wanted. This fair-skinned young man was a level 1 telekinesis master. He had been cultivating for more than 10 years, but he was still at level 1. Usually, he wasn't treated well in his family. He was also often bullied outside. Now that he was in the first hunting ground, the demon in his heart seemed to have awakened. Previously, when he was killing the night ghosts, he killed the most. However, he still felt very unhappy. Killing night ghosts was not as satisfying as killing people. Now that he was in this city, he naturally wanted to kill without restraint. At this moment, his telekinesis detected that among these people, there was one person who was different from the rest. Chapter 266. That fair-skinned young man scanned the scene with his telekinesis. He caught sight of a person. Everyone else was in a state of panic. But there was only one person. He was still sitting on the stone bench, holding a piece of barbecued meat and eating it in big bites. His mouth was full of oil. It was as if everything that was happening in front of him had nothing to do with him. That fair-skinned young man suddenly frowned. Usually, his brothers and sisters in the family had been showing off in front of him. After leaving the family, he always met other people showing off in front of him. Now that he had finally come to the first hunting ground, even an indigenous person dared to show off in front of him. Damn it! He cursed in his heart. His face was slightly ferocious. Split open. With a roar in his heart, he attacked Emosher with his telekinesis. He wanted to tear this indigenous person apart in the cruelest way. Instead of tearing him into two halves, he was tearing off strips of flesh from his body. Let him watch helplessly as the flesh on his body was torn clean. However, when his telekinesis enveloped embark and tore at embark's body, suddenly his brows furrowed tightly, because he found that his telekinesis could not tear this guy's body apart. How was this possible? As a level 1 psychic master, he could easily tear apart any level 1 hunter. Except for level 2 hunters, he could easily tear apart any level 1 hunter. Could it be that this aborigine had reached level 2 or above? What a joke! Thinking of this, he condensed all his telekinesis on embark's body. With a move of his telekinesis, he tore at embark again. However, embark still did not move. He lowered his head and continued to eat the piece of meat. It seemed that the more he ate, the more delicious it was. That fair-skinned young man tried again for a while, and a look of horror began to appear on his face. The rest of the people also noticed that something was wrong from this fair-skinned young man's face. They followed his gaze and saw embark, who was eating meat as if nothing had happened. They also felt a chill in their hearts. There's something strange about this indigenous person. Be careful! A scavenger scolded. Who cares what kind of weird thing it is? Can it withstand my energy weapon? As he spoke, he condensed an energy weapon on his right arm. When the natives saw that guy condense an energy weapon, their expressions changed greatly. They had seen the outsiders condense such weapons before. The destructive power of this weapon was extremely strong. Basically, a single sweep could kill a large number of them. No, God, please let us go. We know our wrongs, we really know our wrongs. We only beg you to let us go. The natives begged one after another. At this moment, embark finally finished eating. He took a towel that was specially used to wipe his hands and wiped his hands clean. Then he looked up at the 5 people in the air. The next moment he suddenly leaped. His figure instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in the air. His right hand clenched into a fist and smashed towards the head of the energy martial artist. The young man's head instantly exploded. His body was sent flying by the huge impact. Like a stone, he was thrown more than 300 meters away. When the other 4 outsiders saw this, their expressions changed drastically. Was this person a devil? With only his physical strength, he had killed a level 1 hunter with 1 punch. Not good fight. The leader hurriedly shouted. At the same time, he said to the fair-skinned youth, use telekinesis to restrict him. He knew that it was impossible for the fair-skinned youth to use telekinesis to kill embark. If it was possible, with the fair-skinned youth's character, he would have done it long ago. Since he couldn't kill him, he could at least restrict his speed. However, he was obviously wrong. The fear in the fair-skinned youth's heart was far greater than the others. Because no matter how he used telekinesis to control this guy, it didn't have the slightest effect. This guy seemed to not be afraid of telekinesis at all. The next moment, embark had already arrived behind another level 1 scavenger. His knee hit the man's lower back hard. The man's lumbar spine was directly broken. His entire upper body folded together with his legs. It looked extremely terrifying. Among the remaining 3, the psychic master turned around and was about to escape. However, embark's fist had already landed on his body. The psychic master's physical strength was too weak. Embark's fist directly passed through the guy's back and came out of his chest. Then he turned around. 2 kicks flew out. Crack, crack. The remaining 2 people were also easily killed by him. At this point, these 5 outsiders. In just 5 seconds, they were killed by embark. What was even more terrifying was that he didn't even use a trace of energy. He killed these 5 people completely with his physical strength. If this matter was known by other people on the continent, it would probably cause an uproar. At this time, embark had already received a notification in his mind. After killing these 5 people, he obtained another 5 drops of Titan Dragon blood. The reason why he didn't use telekinesis to kill these 5 people was because of this. Although 5 drops of giant dragon blood were insignificant to him now, Lin Li still had a lot of giant dragon blood left. But little drops make a mickle. No matter how much there was, it was accumulated drop by drop. After killing these 5 people, Emosure's heart didn't have any ripples, as if he had crushed 5 ants. He secretly said in his heart, it won't be like the plot of those melodramatic novels where after killing a few guys, it immediately attracted their elders, then the ancestors, and then some other forces. Fortunately, he knew from the memories of these 5 people that 4 of them didn't have any powerful family elders. The only one with a powerful elder was that psychic master. However, he had already run away from home for 5 or 6 years. Even if he died, his family elders might not know. Even if they knew, they wouldn't come all the way to avenge him. Thinking of this, Emosure was relieved. He said to Emma, "You've eaten, go back to sleep." Emma nodded. "Yes, master." At this time, those natives' jaws were about to drop. They didn't come back to their senses for a long time. As far as they knew, the Aborigines were basically unable to withstand a single blow from those outsiders. But this native was too ferocious. He didn't even use a genetic weapon, he just used his physical strength to kill those 5 people with one punch. This was definitely a natural-born god's strength. Thinking of this, one of them couldn't help but kneel on the ground and worship Emosure. With him bowing, the others followed suit and bowed to the ground one after another like dominoes. "Thank you, hero, for saving our city. If it wasn't for you, we probably wouldn't be able to see the light of day tomorrow." "Thank you, hero. Thank you, hero." Emosure waved his hand casually. "I just didn't want to be disturbed by them." As he spoke, he took out 20 bottles of recovery medicine. "Give these recovery medicine to those who are injured." Chapter 267. After Emosure left, a 13-year-old child picked up a bottle of recovery potion that Emosure had just placed on the stone bench. He quickly came to the side of a pale-faced man whose arm had just been torn off. He said to the man, "Dad, this is recovery potion." Although he didn't know the specific effects of this recovery potion, since it was called recovery potion, it should be able to speed up the recovery of his father's wound. The one-armed man picked up the bottle of dark green potion with his left hand and looked at it for a moment. Finally, he gritted his teeth, opened his mouth, and drank all the green liquid in the bottle. Only a few seconds later, something magical happened. The flesh and blood on the wound of his broken arm began to wriggle. Gradually, muscle tissue, nerves, and even bones began to grow out of it. His broken arm was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 5 minutes, it was as good as new. And there wasn't even a trace of a scar on the previous wound. The man looked at his newly grown arm in amazement, and tried to turn it twice, then swung it left and right back and forth. Everything was no different from his previous arm. He was greatly surprised. When the others saw this, they were all pleasantly surprised. The effect of this potion is too magical. There's actually such a magical potion in the world? Is this holy water? Amidst the exclamations, the injured people all received the recovery potion. After taking it, their bodies recovered in just a few minutes. This made them excited, and also filled them with gratitude toward Emosure and the others. That family of 3 is too mysterious. Not only mysterious, but also very powerful. We've worshipped God our whole lives, but God didn't care about us at all, and now we've been saved by Him. I think we should worship Him from now on. At this time, Emosure had already entered the dragon's den with Emma. He didn't expect these people to be grateful to him. The reason why he gave these people the recovery potion was only to repay them for the food they gave him. As for whether these people would be grateful to him or hate him later, he didn't care. In other words, even if these people pointed their weapons at him tomorrow, he wouldn't care. After so many years, he had already seen through human nature. In fact, the next morning, these people didn't point their weapons at him. On the contrary, the natives picked up their weapons and stood against each other. This was because the people who had taken the recovery potion last night not only had their bodies completely recovered, but after one night, their strength had also increased by 1 level. This made everyone's heart burn with passion. He hadn't used up all the recovery potions from last night. There were only a few bottles left. At this moment, all of them were trying to grab the last few bottles of recovery potion. Of course, they knew that embark had even more recovery potions on him. However, they did not dare to target embark, so they could only fight among themselves. It was almost noon the next day when embark and the others finally came out of the dragon cave. When embark found out that these people had actually started fighting amongst themselves over the recovery potion, he did not say anything, nor did he do anything. He was not surprised by this result. This was human nature. There was a bright side to human nature, but there was also an ugly side. It was impossible for him to change all of this by himself. Therefore, his code of conduct had always been to stay out of harm's way. As for what other people do, it has nothing to do with me. However, when these people saw embark appear, they temporarily stopped fighting. They began to serve embark with good food and drinks, hoping to get a few more bottles of recovery potion from embark. However, embark did not take out another bottle of recovery potion. In the evening, when the sun set behind the mountains, embark took Emma and her son and left the city. As soon as embark left, the city once again fell into a state of fighting. Embark did not know what kind of chaos this city would fall into after he left. He was not interested in knowing. He used his draconic will to investigate the area within 100 kilometers as he flew forward with Emma and her son. After flying for about 2 hours, embark arrived at the mountain pass where the two mountains faced each other. According to the map, this place was called the Black Mountain Pass. After the Black Mountain Pass was the Death Swamp. In the Death Swamp, there were countless level 2 evolved night ghosts. At this moment, his draconic will swept across the Black Mountain Pass. At the entrance of Black Mountain, a group of hunters was chasing after 2 night ghosts. The 2 night ghosts were both level 2 evolved night ghosts. This team of hunters had 7 people, 5 men and 2 women. One of the women was the beautiful girl in front of Emma at the place where embark and the others had bought the tickets. At this moment, they were chasing after the 2 night ghosts. They had already passed through Black Mountain Pass and entered the Death Swamp. Embark was slightly surprised. It was obvious that the 2 night ghosts had deliberately lured this group of people into the Death Swamp. According to his understanding, the intelligence of the night ghosts was at most equivalent to that of a 2 or 3-year-old child. How could they know the tactic of luring the enemy deep? When the 7 people chased the 2 night ghosts into the Death Swamp, the surrounding night ghosts did not immediately appear. They flew for another 2 minutes and covered a distance of more than 100 kilometers. Only then did they realize that something was wrong. They were surrounded by swamps. From time to time, the skeletons of animals could be seen in the swamp. Occasionally, they could even see human skulls. Someone suddenly realized something and was shocked. "Oh no, we've been tricked." The others were stunned and asked, "What's wrong?" That person looked around, then lowered his voice and said 4 words that made one's hair stand on end. "Death Swamp." Boom. It was as if a bolt of lightning had struck everyone's heart. This is the Death Swamp? That's impossible. Weren't we very far from the Death Swamp before? The beautiful girl was so shocked that her face turned pale. Death Swamp? Oh no. The guide said that this place is full of level 2 hunters. It's a place even scarier than the Hell Wasteland. Seeing this, a rather masculine young man came to the beautiful girl's side. He said, "Don't worry, I'm here." The other girl said, "According to the guide, the Death Swamp is rated as level 10 on the Night Ghosts planet. Even level 10 hunters would have to take a detour if they came here. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go." After reaching a consensus, everyone quickly turned their hoverboards around and flew toward the Black Mountain Pass. The hoverboards had a certain flying height limit. They could only fly up to a height of 100 meters. Therefore, they could not fly high enough to avoid the night ghosts below. They could only turn around and fly toward the Black Mountain Pass. Chapter 268. The 5 men and 2 women wanted to escape the Death Swamp. But soon, they were horrified to find that they were too naive. Hundreds of night ghosts had crawled out of the death swamp in front of them. Some of them even had a pair of demon-like wings and could fly in the air. It turned out that these night ghosts had lived in this swamp for tens of thousands of years. They had evolved wings to make it easier for them to travel in the swamp. Everyone panicked when they saw this. What should we do? There are so many night ghosts and flying night ghosts. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. In the midst of everyone's panicked cries, only the leader was clear-headed. Quick, there aren't too many night ghosts in front. Activate your energy weapons and rush out. Otherwise, we won't have a chance. Everyone calmed down slightly after hearing his words. They quickly gathered their energy weapons. However, when they gathered their energy weapons, there were already more than 200 night ghosts in front of them. The dozen or so night ghosts in the lead were only 20 meters away from them. The leader shouted, "Wait for my order. 2 rounds of fire will kill them." However, before he could finish his sentence, those panicking team members had already shot out energy rays one after another. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, after a series of energy beams, more than 20 night ghosts fell into the swamp. The corpses of the night ghosts fell into the swamp and were completely submerged. However, there were still more than 100 night ghosts left. And these people were only level 1 and level 2 hunters. They could only fire their energy beams once or twice. The series of shots just now had already used up most of the energy in their bodies. At this moment, other than the leader and a muscular middle-aged man, the rest of the people felt their legs go weak. They felt like they were about to collapse on the hoverboard. It's over, it's over, it's really over this time. A pessimistic girl kept muttering. The rest of the people's hearts sank. This time, it was really over. Their faces were either filled with despair or unwillingness. Especially the pretty girl. She was already a level 2 hunter and was about to advance to level 3. Her father had said that as long as she advanced to level 3, he would let her manage one of the city squares in the family. But now that she was about to advance to level 3, she was going to die here. How could she accept this? However, now that things had come to this, even though she was unwilling, what could she do? However, at this moment, a night ghost scream came from more than 500 meters away. Gah! Then another sound was heard. Gah! Then, screams could be heard one after another. It sounded like the screams of the night ghosts as they were killed by some powerful creature. When the night ghosts that surrounded these people heard the screams, their eyes flashed with anger. They abandoned these people one after another and turned to fly in the direction of the mountain pass. The rest of the people were still in shock. The leading hunter quickly whispered, "Take advantage of this opportunity and rush out immediately." The others only regained their senses after being reminded by him. He quickly controlled the hoverboard and flew quickly in the direction of the Black Mountain Pass. At first, they avoided the night ghosts from afar. But gradually, they realized that the night ghosts were no longer paying any attention to them. They became bolder and flew towards the Black Mountain Pass at full speed. Gradually, they got closer to the mountain pass. However, they all reduced their speed, because they saw that in the swamp not far from the Black Mountain Pass, hundreds of night ghosts were tightly surrounding 3 people. One of the 3 people was a child of 11 or 12 years old. Another was a woman in her 30s with an explosive figure. The third was a young man who looked to be in his 20s. The young man was dressed in black and looked somewhat mysterious. Facing hundreds of night ghosts around him, there was no fear on his face. Instead, he looked very calm. When the beautiful girl saw embark and the other 2, she immediately remembered. She said, "I've seen them before." The others said, "What time is it? Escape is more important. Don't worry about them." That's right, saving our own lives is more important. The leading young man said, "It seems that all the night ghosts are attacking them. Let's take the opportunity to escape immediately." Thus, they sped up and flew towards the mountain pass. However, they soon realized that something was wrong. There were hundreds of night ghosts surrounding the 3 people in front of them. However, there seemed to be a powerful invisible force that formed a spherical barrier with a diameter of 100 meters around the 3 people. Most of the night ghosts were blocked outside by the spherical barrier. Only 10 night ghosts were left inside. Everyone understood that there should be a psychic master among the three of them. However, wasn't it too risky for them to leave 10 night ghosts inside? 3 people against 10 night ghosts? That would be a suicide mission. However, in the next moment, the scene that occurred caused all of them to be dumbfounded. When the night ghosts pounced, the young man in black suddenly jumped up. He instantly reached a height of 1,000 meters. Then he smashed down. Boom, he punched a night ghost in the head. The night ghost's head instantly exploded. Originally, even if the night ghost's head exploded, as long as the energy bubble in its abdomen didn't leak, it could still revive with its powerful self-healing ability. However, after his punch, the night ghost didn't revive after its head exploded. Everyone's hearts trembled. How was this possible? Then, embark punched and kicked again. In less than a minute, he killed 10 night ghosts. This scene caused the hearts and minds of everyone present to tremble. This is too fierce. He's fighting the night ghosts with his bare hands, and they're all killed instantly. How terrifying is his strength? He can kill these night ghosts without using any energy. I'm afraid even level 10 hunters can't do that. This guy is simply inhuman. The strangest thing is that when he smashed their heads with his fist, they didn't come back to life. At this moment, a tall young man beside the beautiful girl snorted. What's so strange about that? The girl beside them must be a psychic master. She suppressed the self-healing energy in the night ghosts. At this moment, the young man in the lead suggested an idea. They're so strong. Why don't we team up with them? As soon as he said this, the others nodded in agreement. I agree. If we team up with them, we can kill a lot of night ghosts too. Yeah, there's a powerful psychic barrier that separates the extra night ghosts. Only 10 night ghosts are allowed in at a time. If we team up with them, not only can we increase our combat experience, but we can also minimize the danger. Chapter 269. When the young man in the lead suggested this idea, the others immediately agreed. Therefore, the young man in the lead shouted at embark, who was fighting. Brother, do you need help? Why don't we form a team? Although embark had been fighting all this while, through the probing of his draconic sense, he had heard the conversation between these people clearly. How could they be so King shameless? You were attacked. My battle here attracted a large number of night ghosts, so you had to escape. When you saw me surrounded by night ghosts, you didn't have any intention of saving me. Instead, you wanted to escape as soon as possible. Now that you see me killing these night ghosts effortlessly, you want to join me and take advantage of me. This was the epitome of shamelessness. Thinking of this, embark ignored them. However, those people didn't give up. Someone said, Brother, the more friends you have, the more options you have. Let's treat it as making friends. Yeah, we're all young people. Wouldn't it be faster to form a team to kill monsters? The beautiful girl's eyes lit up when she saw how easily embark killed the monsters. Although she was still very jealous of Emma's beauty, she could subconsciously ignore Emma. She said to embark, Big brother, let's form a team together? Embark still couldn't be bothered with them. He continued to kill the night ghosts. 1 punch for 1, 2 drops of Titan dragon blood for each one. Seeing that embark ignored them, those people's expressions turned ugly. Someone said, Ignore him. Let's get out first. Such a narrow-minded person will die sooner or later. Of course, they only said it in a low voice. The pretty girl pouted her lips and didn't lower her voice as she said, That's right. It's just killing a few night ghosts. What's the big deal? With that, this group of people flew toward the Black Mountain Pass. However, after flying for 1,000 meters, they suddenly crashed into an even larger invisible barrier. Caught off guard, these 7 people were all knocked to the ground. Some of them even had sparks coming out of their hoverboards. They couldn't fly anymore. Everyone was shocked and angry. The psychic master suddenly turned his head and looked at Emma not far away. He shouted to the crowd, It's her, the great psychic master. At this moment, Emma, who had not moved all this while, flapped her wings and slowly rose into the air. He stared coldly at these people. Did Master say that he would let you go? Naturally, she had heard what these people were saying just now. She could tolerate these people slandering her, but she could not tolerate the slightest disrespect to her master. That was why he had created a telekinesis barrier to block their way. Emosure glanced at Emma, feeling more and more satisfied with her. Emma was like a roundworm in his stomach. As soon as he thought of something, Emma already knew what he was going to do. In fact, if Emma hadn't made a move just now, he would have. How could he let this group of shameless fellows go? Since Emma had made her move, he ignored her and continued to slaughter the night ghosts. Just now, his dragons had detected that these people had basically already used their energy weapons. There was almost no energy left in their bodies. The only two threats were the young man in the lead. He still had one energy ray that he hadn't used yet. The other was a level 2 telekinesis master. As a level 1 telekinesis master, Emma was difficult to deal with. But don't forget, Emma was also a level 1 evolved vampire. Moreover, after a few days of continuous fighting, her strength had increased very quickly. She had already reached the peak of level 1 evolution. She was about to evolve into a level 2 evolved vampire. At this moment, Emma turned her head and looked at Emosure. Emosure knew what he meant and only said 3 words. "Don't worry." Emma nodded and gently stroked her son's head as she said softly, "Don't worry. Mommy is going to fight the bad guys. I'll be back soon." Then, she flapped her wings and flew out of Emosure's dragon's barrier. The surrounding night ghosts saw this woman come out and immediately pounced on her. But with Emma's telekinesis, these night ghosts were all pushed away. Emma was extremely fast as she flew towards the 7 people. Behind her, the night ghosts chased after Emma like crazy. From afar, she looked like a comet, dragging a long white tail behind it. Seeing this, the 7 people's expressions changed. This woman is crazy. Damn it, This woman is a vampire, and she's a telekinesis master. Be careful. As the level 2 telekinesis master spoke, he hurriedly used his telekinesis to stop Emma. However, just as his telekinesis reached out of his body, he felt a huge wave of telekinesis pressing down on him. His telekinesis had no room to resist and was directly pressed back into his body. How is this possible? His face was pale as an extremely terrifying feeling rose in his heart. He could clearly feel that this woman was a level 1 telekinesis master. That was why he dared to face this woman with confidence. But this huge wave of telekinesis was not the telekinesis of a level 1 telekinesis master at all. Of course, he didn't know that it was Emosure who helped Emma just now. He used the dragon's will to suppress his telekinesis. Emma naturally knew this as well. At an extremely fast speed, the level 2 telekinesis master flew out. Seeing that he couldn't stop Emma, the level 2 telekinesis master hurriedly stepped on the hoverboard and tried to escape. However, under the obstruction of Emma's telekinesis, he couldn't fly at all. In the next moment, Emma had already flown in front of him. Then, she suddenly turned and attacked the others. Emma didn't need to do anything at all. The night ghosts behind Emma immediately swarmed forward. Almost instantly, they tore the level 2 telekinesis master into pieces. When the leader saw Emma being so violent, he hurriedly condensed an energy weapon. A red and white energy ray cut straight towards Emma's body. Emma's figure flashed. Although she avoided a fatal blow, one of her arms was directly cut off. However, Emma seemed to be fine at all. She continued to rush towards the leader. At this moment, the leader had no energy in his body, and his hoverboard shoes were restricted by Emma's telekinesis. He couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Finally, Emma flew above him. Her wings suddenly pierced out. The pair of sharp hooks on her wings directly pierced the young man's eyes. And it directly pierced through his eyes and out the back of his head. Ever since he followed Emosure, his fighting style of being scolded had gradually changed. When dealing with the enemy, it was as cruel as it could be. It was to let them know the consequences of being enemies with him. When the rest of the people saw how cruel this woman was, all of their faces turned pale. Who would have thought that such a woman who exuded a feminine aura from head to toe would be so valiant in battle? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.